Hello, everybody. Oh my goodness, it is Thursday. Ooh, we have a humongous, gargantuous show today. So not only is the news portion of it huge, also the React content that we have to go through is massive. I am warning you, for the people who are constantly begging me for longer form content, I will be streaming for the next gazillion hours. So look forward to that. Let me see you in the comments. As I previously explained to you guys, I have a weird eating schedule because I absolutely look forward to every day being able to do a late night snack. But by snack, I mean like an entire late night meal. And so because of that, I also want to eat big dinners. So I pretty much don't eat all day until dinner. And then I eat a big dinner, and then I have like what I would have had as a breakfast, lunch. Not breakfast and lunch, but like a breakfast or lunch in the middle of the night. Okay. But because of that, when I start the stream, I'm deathly hungry. I'm doing fine right now because I had a protein shake, but because I'm planning on streaming so long, I will probably be getting violently hungry at some point during this. Oh, I'm so hyped though, because we have so many good things to go through. And bad things as usual, but some good things. How's the stream looking? Not bad. I think I've permanently fixed the grainy issue. Hello Eric, hello Jared, Salim, and Tommy. Great to see you all in the chat. We're about to get into everything. I just like to give a second for people to jump on and get ready for this wonderful night we have planned. From sunny Palm Springs. Wow. Sunny Palm Springs, I'm guessing you meant. The capitalization of sunny made me think it was a place. Let's see. Do I have any like announcements or anything? Not really. I hope y'all enjoyed yesterday's interview / conversation with Raymer. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. I might just go ahead and get into our stories. I think we have 5 stories to go through before chilling out. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. Obviously, we got to start talking a little bit more about the mass shooting in Illinois. We are learning more and more about the lead up to the devastating mass shooting in Highland Park, Illinois, that occurred on the 4th of July during a 4th of July parade, specifically about the shooter himself and what variables led him to being able to have access to a weapon that would give him that ability to do such damage. So before we get into that, I will be honest, I'm less interested in the specific details about the shooter's life. I think a lot of times we have this cultural tendency to celebritize mass shooters, which is the exact opposite of what we should be doing, because I do think that encourages other deranged individuals who have some ambition to be recognized, to be heard, to be seen, to conduct these types of violent acts, to get that attention, and I would not want to contribute to that. So unless there are very relevant details about him that I think we need to be aware of to prevent future tragedies, such as what radicalized him, did he have any particular ideology, etc., then otherwise I don't really want to look into, because I don't think it benefits us, showing a bunch of photos of him or diving into specific personal life details. But a relevant part of this is how he got a gun. Based on all the clear blinking LED signs that were blaring at people around him that he was a threat, he was still entrusted with such a dangerous weapon. So that's very important for us to understand and identify so that we can prevent future events like this. So on that note, as with many other of these young shooters we've seen recently, it did come down to people around him not taking his dangerous tendencies seriously and making him someone who's able to get their hands legally on a dangerous weapon. So we're about to dive into that, but I will just say, to make sure everyone is clear about what I'm trying to say, at the end of the day, yes, it is the individual's fault. All of the responsibility should land on the shoulders of the person who carried out these acts, of course. But it is still very valuable to look into what could have prevented this kind of damage, what could have prevented someone who was dangerous, who did have these terrible aspirations, from getting a tool that allows them to do that so effectively. And obviously effectively in the most negative sense of the word. And so that's where this conversation around gun control comes in, the specific red flag laws and the implementation of them that we should be looking at. And that's where this all kind of comes into play. So with that being said, reading from NBC News, Highland Park shooting suspect Robert E. So the mass shooter, I don't think repeating his name much time is relevant. So his father, quote, may have responsibility in certain circumstances for his son's deadly actions, police say Wednesday, while stopping short of tying the dad to any criminal culpability. So they're looking into the dad because he clearly acted irresponsibly in his management of his son, in his management of giving his son a assault rifle type weapon. The 21-year-old suspect was too young to get a gun permit in 2019 from the state of Illinois, but his father sponsored one for him despite previous threats by his son to harm himself and loved ones, authorities have previously said. So he wasn't quite old enough yet to get a gun, but his dad helped him get one. The shooter was still under 21 in 2020 when he purchased the AR-15 style weapon allegedly used in Monday's attack, a purchase he could only make because his father sponsored his firearm owner's identification application. Again, people around an individual who had shown dangerous tendencies were helping him, sponsoring him in his attempt to get a dangerous weapon. The shooter's dad is a formal mayoral candidate in Highland Park and has voiced support for Second Amendment protections. He co-signed for his son's FOID application in December 2019, 3 months after police visited the family's home because a relative reported that the shooter had threatened to kill his family members, the Illinois State Police said. So the police had been called to the guy who would eventually become the shooter, to his house because he was threatening to harm himself, harm those around him. And yet still after that dangerous incident, his dad helped him get a gun. At the time, 16 knives, a sword, and a dagger were confiscated, but the suspect wasn't arrested because family members declined to sign any complaints. The elder, so the father, characterized the incident as a childish outburst in an interview with the New York Post. He insisted he didn't do anything wrong and said he sponsored his son's application because he thought the firearm use would be limited to the shooting range. So why is this so crucial? Well, because those around him, notably his dad, didn't take his previous destructive actions seriously and then actively helped him to get a dangerous weapon, more people are dead that wouldn't have been otherwise. And that is what we see in a lot of these mass shootings. They aren't criminal masterminds who would have found a way to get an AR-15 or something like it by any means necessary, no matter what the laws were. No, these are disturbed kids who are showing signs of being potentially destructive and then given and supported in legally getting access to a gun that becomes a murder weapon. So if we did have more effective and agile systems, as well as a citizenry that took this issue seriously and would not give a gun to their kid if he was showing these signs, again, the police were called because this individual was threatening people's lives, then we could have saved lives after that event. We could have saved lives in Highland Park, Illinois over the weekend. So another disturbing aspect of this is reading shortly after Monday's mass shooting in Highland Park, Illinois, that left at least 7 people dead and more than 3 dozen injured. The alleged shooter drove up to Madison, Wisconsin, and seriously contemplated executing another attack, according to the Lake County Sheriff's Office. So he allegedly was considering, after the Highland Park shooting, going directly to Madison, Wisconsin, and carrying out another mass shooting. So clearly quite disturbed, as obviously we are quite aware of. So I mean, I guess I'm glad that didn't happen, but it shows you how much damage this person was longing to do. So I think the takeaway is we absolutely do need systems in place that can identify people who are potentially harmful to themselves or others, and then restrict their ability to get dangerous killing machines. But we don't just have to have those systems in place. The implementation and the execution of those systems have to be effective enough that not only is it on the books that people who are showing these dangerous tendencies shouldn't have guns, but actually law enforcement is carrying that out and making sure people don't have dangerous weapons if they're clearly a threat to themselves and to others. But also, I think this story does put into our heads and should remind us that we need to be educating the population on how crucial it is that if you want a firearm, you have to be extremely careful with your own guns and with your decision to support or not support your children getting guns, so that we can all be safer in this country. So I think better education societally wide about, if you want a firearm, this is what you have to do to be safe with it, is crucial to make sure that we all stay safe. All right, let's check in with the comments. Oh my goodness, Joe Pierce sending a chunky super chat. Thank you so much. Joe said, "Hi Luke, great to see you and see super chats now. Love the show." Thank you so much, Joe. You're amazing, 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 and I love doing it. Looking good. Did you adjust the lighting? No, everything's the same. Or slap on makeup? Everything's exactly how it always is, except for, could be the color of my shirt makes me look good, or my hair. Whenever I shampoo it, it gets real fluffy. So his dad is a card-carrying NRA member and brought his kid up in a MAGAverse. I don't know specifically about the father to that extent, but it does say he was a, Second Amendment guy, and clearly with his actions in trying to get his son a gun, even when the son was not someone who should have a gun, and sponsoring his efforts to get one is probably goes to what you were saying about him being like a MAGA person. Because I don't know too many liberals who would just absolutely do anything to get their deranged child a gun. Again, I'm not saying that because, MAGA people are all terrible. I'm saying because the gun culture is on the right, of obsessing over every person over the age of a certain age needs a gun. My goodness. Hello, everybody. Hello. Okay. For anyone just hopping in, we have literally a gargantuous show today. It's amazing. After we finish today's news, we have a bunch of... Guys, why do I burp so much? We have some awesome React content to go through. So if you don't have anything going on tonight, I'm going to be here for a while. So you can tune in. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into our next story. Speculation about whether Trump would run for president for a third time in 2024 began pretty much the second that he lost to Joe Biden in 2020. And each step along the way, Trump has been pretty clear with his public remarks that at least, if nothing else, he wants people to plan on him running for a number of different reasons. But recently, reporting has come out showing that he may be planning on announcing a 2024 run a lot earlier than most people expected. So let's take a look at that. Reading from CBS, former President Donald Trump has privately told allies and aides in recent days that he's seriously considering announcing a 2024 presidential run as early as this summer, CBS News has learned. Even as Trump moves closer to a 2024 run, his deliberations remain fluid. So this is very interesting. The center point of our story today is Trump may announce early, and we'll talk about why. But this little part of the article reveals that he's actually not decided yet. So he's either going to announce early, or he's actually kind of not sure, though. And that's very interesting, because I thought he would have made up his mind by now. Continuing, no final decision has been made on whether to run, and if so, when to launch such a bid, according to 3 people close to Trump who requested anonymity. Sorry, that brain farted me for a second. Anonymity in order to share details on private conversations. Spokesperson for Trump did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Sunday. So that's kind of analyzing. He's not sure yet, and he's still trying to figure it out. Fascinating. Several people who have spoken to Trump recently told CBS News that Trump and a small group of top advisors are now mapping out various ways for Trump to announce a 2024 campaign, be it this summer or after this year's midterm elections. Traditionally, major party presidential candidates wait until well after the fall elections before jumping into presidential campaign mode. An early Trump launch before the November elections could upend campaigning strategies for both parties. So that's really interesting, because announcing the summer before a midterm is very bizarre, and that would change the political landscape a lot with situations in his own party about people wanting to run it, but then also the Democrats' strategy. Because if Trump has a multiple month jump on public campaigns where he's clear that he's running for president, where he's bashing the Democrats, and the Democrats are just standing by without any coherent plan for their race against him, that could give him kind of a head start in getting ahead in the minds of voters a little bit more. Others close to Trump say that his anger toward the televised House January 6th committee hearings is fueling his motivation to run again and potentially to announce soon. Some people close to Trump said he feels he is not being defended well by Republicans and believes he alone is best positioned to defend himself. So one of the reasons he might want to announce early is he doesn't feel, with all of the public thrashing of him as an individual that is happening right now because of the January 6 hearings, he feels being a presidential candidate will allow him to have the platform necessary to properly defend himself. Another reason that has been floated for why he might be wanting to announce early is he's seeing Ron DeSantis, as well as a few other but less significant options, rising in the Republican Party as possible 2024 presidential candidates. And so he likely hopes that if he goes ahead and announces early, he will stop the bleeding of him losing relevance, sort of, and losing that unilateral control of the Republican Party slowly, but it definitely is happening, especially with these January 6 hearings. And so announcing early could reinvigorate the strength and control he has over the party and over his own movement, and stamp down any possible DeSantis run, for example. So it's so fascinating that he isn't sure at this point, though, behind the scenes, because I was confident that he had at least made up his mind. I'm not running, but I'm going to keep pretending like it so I can stay relevant, so that I stay in the public eye, or I'm definitely running, which is what I thought his decision was based on his public statements. But no, it looks like he's still trying to figure it out behind the scenes, but then he's thinking, if I decide to run, I want to announce early so that I can be the complete center of attention when it comes to possible Republican candidates in 2024, and also be able to more effectively publicly defend myself against all of the revelations that are coming out of the January 6th hearings. So fascinating stuff. Let me know where you stand. Would you rather see a Democrat go up against Trump or go up against a different candidate? Do you think it is a good strategy for Trump to run again? Do you think it's a good strategy for Trump to announce early if he is running again? And what is your analysis of all of that? Please let me know both in the comments of the YouTube video, but you can also tweet me on Twitter at Luke P. Beasley. Don't forget to be following my Twitter. All right, let's check in with the comments. Whoa. Who do you think would be worse to censor Trump if they got elected? I really don't know. I really don't know. Here's why. I think there's a chance that DeSantis would be a little bit more of an institutionalist to the point where his radical ideas wouldn't be able to be implemented, and then he would accept defeat if he lost. Maybe not. That's the sense I get, maybe. Whereas Trump, what is so frightening is, even though he's a lot more incompetent, which is helpful to the Democrats, he also is like more genuinely deranged. And I think he would, what I mean by that is I think DeSantis does a lot of his deranged actions to appeal to his base. Trump, I think, is just like unhinged these days, especially. And so I'm really afraid that if he won again, his undermining of democracy and his breakdown of the processes might be so radical that we aren't really able to recover. And then a question that I get asked a lot that I'm not sure about is, I think I'm sure. So if Trump won again, people say he's not going to want to leave after a second term. I think he would. I think he would leave. His age and all that type of stuff. So in that case, what would he try to do to democracy? Because really it's all about him. And so if he knows he's going to leave after a second term, then would he actually go through with a lot of undermining? I don't know. It's interesting. Or would he try to like stay in power longer? All of that is in question. Yeah, so I see talking about the shooter. That's like the type of details that I think are just kind of irrelevant. People are, looking at like his rap career and stuff, and I'm like, well, I don't think you kind of like, I think Doug and I talked about, or at least Doug commented, you don't want to give him that air. That's one of the reasons that they do these terrible acts is to get attention and get like celebrity. And so by repeating their name a bunch of times and by talking about their personal details that are relevant to the actual shooting, it just kind of gives them what they hope for, and I think encourages future shooters like that. All right, y'all ready to jump into our next story? Let's do it. Now former, or about to be former, one of the two, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced that he will be stepping down in the wake of a number of different controversies surrounding him that have seriously damaged his popularity and party control. So Boris Johnson is kind of a buffoon. So this isn't really bad news for me. This is good news, and it's actually a little funny, to be honest, watching this all go down. We will get to his announcement video in just a second here. But first, let's read about why he was pressured out of his position as prime minister. So this article breaks it down into two big controversies that did the most damage. The first, they call the Pincher affair. A senior conservative MP recently resigned after mounting allegations that he sexually harassed two men while drunk. An ex-senior civil servant's revelation that Johnson was made aware of the allegations in 2019 put an end to the shifting explanations from Downing Street number 10, which initially denied the prime minister was even aware of the official's behavior. So one of Boris Johnson's close allies, one of his MPs, had legitimate accusations against him of sexual harassment, and it was made clear that Boris Johnson was aware of this before he brought the guy on, but he still brought the person on. So while Johnson later apologized for the appointment, it did not prevent the resignations of two of his cabinet's top members. After the heated discussions at the questions to the prime minister session on Wednesday at the House of Commons, Johnson was confronted by members of his party as well. So one of the big things we saw that led, I think, as well to him having to resign is for him having to step down is a landslide of resignations among his cabinet members. The next big scandal was Partygate, a number of breaches of restrictions in place during the COVID-19 pandemic by Downing Street in 2020 and 2021 also caused controversy when it was revealed that social gatherings and parties were held there while the rest of the country was in lockdown. Johnson and Sunak attended some of these parties where alcohol was consumed excessively and janitors were treated inappropriately. Don't treat the janitors inappropriately. Hard enough job as it is. Police and government investigations into the violations found that top government officials knowingly breached COVID-19 restrictions. So that was the one that I think was heard around the world most about, was there were these restrictions in place for COVID-19 and Johnson knowingly violated them, had big old parties, spread the COVID all over the place. And when you're the leader of a country that is asking your people to take certain precautions to keep everyone safe, and then you're not taking those precautions, that's going to make people mad for sure. And we've seen a lot of those examples in the United States with officials as well. And I think it's definitely a good reason to be upset with the leader of your country or one of the leaders of your country when they tell you to do something and they don't do it themselves, for sure. So messed up in a few big ways. The funny thing is none of that would take down a conservative politician in the United States, but at least it took him down. So that's good, I guess. As I mentioned, he did come out and give a speech explaining that he would be stepping down and why. So let's take a look at that.
In the last few days, I've tried to persuade my colleagues that it would be eccentric to change governments when we're delivering so much and when we have such a vast mandate and when we're actually only a handful of points behind in the polls, even in mid-term after quite a few months of pretty relentless sledging, and when the economic scene is so difficult domestically and internationally. And I regret not to have been successful in those arguments, and of course it's painful not to be able to see through so many ideas and projects myself. And to you, the British public, I know that...
So you can hear in the background, he's getting booed. That's a bummer way to go out.
That there will be many people who are relieved, and perhaps quite a few who will also be disappointed. And I want you to know how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world. Above all, I want to thank you, the British public, for the immense privilege that you have given me. And I want you to know that from now on until the new Prime Minister is in place, your interests will be served and the government of the country will be carried on.
So, perfectly fine, good speech. He's sad to be leaving. Tried to convince his party not to do it, but he was overruled and has decided to step down. Again, Boris Johnson is just kind of a buffoonish conservative. So this is a positive development because definitely he's not the best leader to be leading the British people. Sun Queen says, hopefully Trump will be busy trying to stay out of prison, therefore not allowing him to run in 2024. Yeah. If the evidence can be clearly presented and he gets taken down, that would be pretty cool, I have to say. Indeed. Oh my gosh, our last two stories, guys, are insane. What the heck is happening in America? Ugh. And then as a quick preview, after we get through these next two stories of news, we will be going over an interview that Tucker Carlson did in our, at post-show portion. That'll be like a gazillion hours today. Tucker Carlson, and then we might actually skip the second thing. I don't know if we'll do that a different day. But the third thing we'll do is Destiny, the political live streamer, did a joint debate actually. It was like two partners debating each other about abortion, and just a lot of interesting discussions came out of it that I want to look at. So we'll be reacting to that debate as well, which should be really fascinating. White Knight, thanks for being here. Andrew, what's up? I'm just, living, doing good. Doing pretty good, yeah. Life's pretty crazy right now, but it's about to get even crazier. Got lots of new developments in my life. Okay. Let's go ahead and do our next story. What I'm about to show you is bizarre, to say the least. A Fox News correspondent suggested that the solution to these mass shootings we've been experiencing lately in America just might be, wait for it, exorcisms. Wait, what? Yes, exorcisms may be the solution to mass shootings. Let's take a look.
But frankly, I got to tell you, I've been thinking and studying about all these cases. I'm not sure we're going deep enough. Yeah, I think you need police, you need parents for sure, you need schools, you need to clean up social media, you need all that. But you know, you may need an exorcist too.
What? Just drop that in there. We may need an exorcist.
Before your audience shakes its head on that, if you look at these boys, these men, these young men, they have deeply spiritual problems. Deeply. If you go into the labyrinthine caves of the internet, way down, and I don't recommend it, it's ugly stuff.
Does anyone else doubt that knows how to effectively navigate the internet? Come on.
And these guys dwell there. They live there. They drench themselves in it. And it's as ugly and evil as it gets. We're the ministers. We're the rabbis, the priests. Look, I don't want to suggest something that would seem farcical to a lot of your audience, but I don't think that the domain of...
I love when someone says, I don't want to blank, right as they're doing the thing they said they didn't want to do. I don't want to say something that would seem farcical to your audience. Now let me talk about an exorcist coming in to solve the issues we have in America.
Religion ought to be involved here. It's a deeply spiritual void, I think, that these young men have in their hearts and their souls, and I think it needs to be addressed. And I don't think we get at it, frankly, with these externalities, as important as some of them may be, and they may be. We need to do it all, but we need to do more.
So,
this revolutionary new device can remove up to 10 times more earwax than a traditional...
Clean your earwax out, guys. Sorry. So, we've been talking about how a lot of anti-gun control conservatives, again, these days, a lot of conservatives actually are fine with common sense gun control, but most of the people in power aren't, and a lot of the people in media aren't. So that sect of the conservative movement will literally bend themselves into the most complex pretzel you've ever eaten. That's not how we use that metaphor. To get away from having to answer legitimately what the solutions are, which do have to do with mental health, sure, do have to do with us promoting good, healthy homes, but blaring in our face is we do have to regulate the weapons that all of these shooters are using to do the maximum level of harm that they're able to inflict on people. And so this is such a cartoonish example of that, but it's like, let's talk about any other thing that could be playing a role in this, any other wacko solution other than the most obvious ones, because that would infringe on this bizarrely distorted conception we have of what the Second Amendment means, which is not in our Constitution to say that there should be absolutely zero regulation of very dangerous weapons. No, absolutely not. But that's what they want it to mean. Also, it's funny because he says, these dark corners of the internet are very disturbing places, and we should be seeing how that's affecting children who grow up into young adults who do these mass shootings. I agree with that. People who are spending a lot of their time in dark parts of the internet and being exposed to terrible ideologies that radicalize them, that is a relevant conversation. How do we encourage people to live more healthy lives so that they don't end up being radicalized to that extent? But then the second half of his statement was, we should look at these dark parts of the internet and get an exorcist to fix it. This isn't something that we need to spiritually fix. There are real, on the ground, material, worldly ways that we can improve this issue. But see, this is what happens when you try to ignore the obvious solutions. You start coming up with bizarre, unhinged ideas that you even have to preface for the Fox News audience. Hey, I know you're going to think this is wacky, but hear me out, you know? So there we go. Fox News host suggesting that exorcists are the solution to mass shootings. Crazy stuff. Leslie, what's up? I'm always curious to see when I see conversations going, like what the heck's going down in the chat. Okay. Wasn't that crazy? God. American politics just gets weirder and weirder as the days go by. Okay, our last story is it's crazy. Okay, let me compose myself. I want to warn you, I am not going to be able to get through this story without crying of laughter, so just brace yourself. A congresswoman that I previously was unfamiliar with got up on the House floor and said she needs her right to have a gun to be protected, so that if it comes to it, she can shoot her grandchildren. What? A congresswoman said she needs her right to bear arms so that if it comes to it, she can shoot her grandchildren. So, I'm obviously not going to BS you. Of course, I think giving her the benefit of the doubt, she probably misspoke. But when you watch this, there was no like moment of, wait, that didn't make sense. I'm going to die. Okay, let's watch.
Ohio is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I recognize or yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from Arizona, Ms. Lesko.
The gentlelady from Arizona is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Representative Jordan. I rise in
Let me... Oh, no, I can't do anything. Okay.
opposition to H.R. 2377. I have 5 grandchildren. I would do anything to protect my 5 grandchildren, including, as a last resort, shooting them if I had to protect the lives of my grandchildren.
Wait. What is happening? Okay, we're gonna have to watch this multiple times, but let's let her finish what she's saying.
Democrat bills that we've heard this week want to take away my right to protect my grandchildren. They want to take away the rights of law-abiding citizens to protect their own children and grandchildren and wives and brothers and sisters.
By having to kill them, maybe. Okay, let's start that over. 1 second. Okay, breathe, everybody, breathe. Here we go.
Ohio is recognized.
All right, we're on the House floor, Congress, serious stuff.
2 minutes to the gentlelady from Arizona, Ms. Lesko.
The gentlelady from Arizona is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Representative Jordan. I rise in opposition to H.R. 2377. I have 5 grandchildren. I would do anything to protect my 5 grandchildren, including, as a last resort, shooting them if I had.
That moment is legendary. I have 5 grandchildren. I would do anything for those 5 grandchildren, including, if it came to it, shooting them. What? Hold up.
Had to protect the lives of my grandchildren. Democrat bills that we've heard this week.
I think you just made the best argument for gun control, because apparently we have congresswomen who want to be able to shoot their own grandchildren. Now, again, okay, let's break it down. What do you think she was trying to say? I honestly don't know. Maybe she forgot to say, if someone was entering my house who was trying to harm my grandchildren, then I would shoot them, speaking of the person who was coming to harm them. But the sentence came out so fluid. It wasn't like, you know, if someone ever tried to come kill my grandchildren, you know, I love my grandchildren so much, I would want to shoot them. Where it sounds like you're saying the grandchildren, but you were just referring to the person who was trying to hurt your grandchildren. But no, with this, she doesn't reference anyone else in the context of that statement. All she says is, I love my grandchildren so much that if it came to it, I would have to shoot them, or I should be able to. Wild stuff. Okay, one more time. This is it, I promise. It's too funny.
Just for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Representative Jordan. I rise in opposition to H.R. 2377.
Look, she's looking at prepared notes. How did she prepare this so wrong? I think she had a bullet point that was laying out a situation where her grandchildren were about to be harmed by someone, and that's where she was going to say, I should be able to shoot them. Speaking of the, robber going in the house or something like that. But then accidentally, while she was typing up her notes, deleted that bullet point, because she's looking down at sheets of paper and somehow says an absurd misspeak. I hope.
I have 5 grandchildren. I would do anything to protect my 5 grandchildren, including, as a last resort, shooting them if I had to protect the lives of my grandchildren.
That could not be a more clear, well-communicated way to say exactly what she just said. Like, she did not stutter. She did not take a pause because she was getting confused about what she was trying to say. She looked right at the speaker and said, if it comes to it, I need the ability to kill my 5 grandchildren because I love them so much. That's crazy. Again, we're giving her the benefit of the doubt. Of course, she probably wasn't meaning to say that. She's probably meaning to say she should use her gun to protect her grandchildren by killing someone as a last resort. But hilarious. Hilarious. I can't even get enough of that. But I won't play it again for your sake. Wild stuff in America, guys. Okay. What do y'all think? Isn't it crazy? I know. It killed me when I saw it. Snot came out of my nose. I laughed so hard. Because she's so serious. They're trying to take away our right to kill our grandchildren. It's like, oh my gosh. Okay, I can put this one down. Too dang funny. All right. If you want a chat read in the most appreciative way possible, don't forget you can send a super chat. It's like a chat, but Superman sponsored it. Or, even more amazing, you can go to patreon.com. It's in the description box of this live stream. Patreon.com/Luke Beasley and become a patron. We've gotten a few new ones recently, which is amazing. New patrons. So definitely do that. And with the title of a patron, you become someone who gets access to a weekly bonus show. This last bonus show, we watched Jordan Peterson's nonsense. Did she mean in the face of something worse than shooting? Maybe she was saying, like, I need the right to my gun because if they're about to go be tortured, I should have the right to shoot them or something. I don't know. I've heard people say that before. Like, would you kill someone you loved if you knew it was their best option, like their least painless option or something like that? But she did not set any of that up. Again, she left out a bunch of bullet points out of that statement and skipped to a part that confused us all. Are you on Twitch as well? No, but I'm going to be there ASAP. I'm going to get that set up probably over the weekend. Yeah. Would people watch on Twitch? Probably not, but we should still do it. We can start getting built up there. It's just because we don't have, don't really have that many people on YouTube yet, and so dividing up seems like a bummer, but that's okay. All right, y'all, let's get into this more nonsense. Let's see. Tucker Carlson was finally confronted. He rarely does interviews with people who will actually ask him difficult questions. So this was kind of interesting. Nothing really great comes out of it, but at least he poses good questions to Tucker Carlson about his harmful rhetoric and stuff like that. Now, just update. We're in the react portion. We're just chilling now. So yeah, we'll check this out. But it has like his crazy laugh.
You're naked, I'm restless, I know you're still awake.
Tucker Carlson tonight on Fox News. Tucker is joining us remotely from New York. Ben, good luck.
Thank you, Steve. Tucker, wow, nice closet.
Ben Smith, ladies and gentlemen.
And I'm glad you agreed to join us.
Someone just texted me and said you were pretty tough with Taylor Lorenz, which I was heartened to hear, but it's...
If one of the 5 grandchildren were threatening the other 4, she'd be fine with shooting one of them. Maybe that's what she was trying to say. You guys watch people on Twitch? Okay, I'll get Twitch set up. Oh, Salim is subbing on Patreon tonight. Sweet. Thank you. Jack said he loves Twitch. Dang. All right. This weekend, I promise. It'll be good to go.
It's easy to hurt her feelings, so I hope you'll check your privileges.
I'm just hoping you'll let me ask questions and not steamroll me, because you're a professional and I'm not.
Well, you're the tough one, Ben.
But I have been watching your...
So to people asking why is he in his closet in like a wood shed, here's why. He's mega rich. And when you're mega rich, you have 2 options. When you do at-home interviews, you can either show off your bougie life and make some people mad because your backdrop is like a multi-million-dollar, setup with a beautiful view off of a hill. Or you can stick yourself in a little corner so that people don't think about the fact that you are so much above them, but pretend to care about their economic well-being.
Your show a lot, and you spend a lot of time laughing about labels that are thrown at you. Racist.
By the way, he has the most creepy laugh in this interview. Just wait for it. In one moment, I almost vomited out of my ears watching this.
White supremacist, the most host of the most racist show in the history of cable television. And actually, I'd rather not ask you about the labels, but sort of give you an opportunity to talk about what you believe. And to begin with, do you believe white people are superior to other races?
No, of course not. And the funny thing is, that's one of those.
Let me just stop on the yes/no question there, and just to put it a little differently before you respond, which is, do you think that white people have more of a claim on America?
Superior in any way.
Do you think that white people have some claim on America that people of other races don't?
Of course not. I mean, first of all, I'm a Christian, so I think God made everybody, and therefore everyone has equal value in his eyes. That's the essential value of every person is the same. But the idea that I harbor some sort of deep racial animus is like, I think there are a lot of criticisms you could level at me. I think sometimes I overstate the case, I get pissed, I can be very nasty. You've been on the receiving end of that. I know you can.
He didn't do this here, but this reminds me of whenever people try to describe their own flaws and it just is so self-aggrandizing. Like, listen, you can criticize me about stuff. I care too much. I work too hard. Sometimes I get too passionate about what I care about. And you know what? Occasionally, I'm not super patient. But don't criticize me about all that nonsense. It's like so funny when people do that.
Vouch for that. But the idea that if you were to look at my texts or listen to my personal conversations or read my mind, you would find no instance where I'm mad at black people. 100% of the people that I'm mad at are well-educated white liberals. In my mind, the sort of archetype of the person I don't like is like a 38-year-old female white lawyer with a barren personal life. That's who yells at me on airplanes. And so I always say to people like, you're racist.
Okay, let me before. Okay, let me.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh, I just had a heart palpitation. Oh my gosh! Shivers down my spine.
Okay, let me before. Okay, let me.
Oh my god, this hurts so bad. I'm so scared for my life. Oh my gosh! Why is this laugh so creepy?
That's who yells at me on airplanes. And so I always say to people like, you're racist.
Okay, let me before. Okay, let me.
Actually, I'm not mad at black people. Like, what are you talking about?
Can I just
That's who yells at me on airplanes. And so I always say to people like, you're racist.
Okay, let me before. Okay, let me.
Actually, I'm not.
This is scary, mommy. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're done. I'm not watching that anymore.
Mad at black people? Like, what are you talking about?
Can I just let me show you? Let me show you. I think why people react this way. I think we have a clip. I just wanted to show you. Can you, Sydney? Can you play that?
In political terms, this policy is called the Great.
Okay, look at this right now. This is wild. This shows how much makeup they have to put on him, which is totally fine. Makeup's awesome, but like it's kind of funny because look how red his face is in real life and how like nice and tan it is. And I get it, proper lighting too. Like obviously, the nice lights in here probably make me look better, but and then nice and like so tan looking. It's hilarious.
Great replacement, the replacement of legacy Americans with more obedient people from faraway countries.
So
let me try to mimic that. No, I hate you. Can't do it.
Tucker, what's a legacy American?
People who were born here, black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asian.
Okay, let's figure this out. Ready? So a legacy American is someone who's born here. All right, okay. But where did they come from? Some of them, their parents were born here, okay. But what about the ones who were born here and their parents immigrated here? That was okay with you? Okay, cool. So immigration at some point is okay with you, and it wasn't an invasion at that point because those people were made into legacy Americans. But whenever it's right now, whenever you can use it as a fear-mongering tactic, now it's an invasion and it's the great replacement whenever people are immigrating. But all of us, unless you're 100% Native American, are at some point someone immigrated here that, you know, gave rise to me, gave rise to each and every one of us, you know? I don't know. It's so stupid.
Asian people who are citizens, people who participated, generationally in our system. And
what? He's so good at cryptic language. Legacy American and then participated generationally in our system. Huh? And he's gonna, in a second, this guy's gonna ask, so how many generations have you been needing to participate to be a legacy American?
And a lot of them don't buy the program of the modern Democratic Party because it doesn't serve them. And so the center of the Democratic electoral strategy going forward, I'm not guessing, they talk about it constantly, you're a journalist, you must have noticed, is to bring in new people who will vote for them. Now that,
do you think,
let me just finish if you don't mind. This is not something that I made up or found on the internet. I don't even really go on the internet. This is something that
he's always talking about people screaming at him on Twitter.
Democrats, including, the architect of Obama's last victory, have talked about at great lengths in pieces, monographs on television. They've written books about it. So this is not like some crackpot Alex Jones.
Do you think when you talk about
this is the central strategy of the Democratic Party? So to be like, I can't believe you said that. I'm putting it back to that.
You talked about generational investment. How many generations makes you a legacy American?
I'm just saying people who live here now.
Wait, listen.
Do you
immigrants.
Wait, what? Okay. Including people who live here now, including immigrants. So a month ago, you were saying all of these things. In the last month, there's been a change, and more people live here who are immigrants. Okay. So now all those people, because they live here, and you're saying even immigrants who live here are legacy Americans. So then who are you going after? Because every person who's trying to immigrate here is trying to live here. Or, yeah, pretty much. Unless you're like, just visiting. But that's not immigration. Okay, cool. So what are we talking about then? We've just said everyone. Anyone who's living here is a legacy American. Then who are you going after? Who are the Democrats trying to ship in? It's very interesting.
Do you have any empathy for somebody who sees that clip, somebody who's, whose parents are from India, from China, who are Jewish, and say, wow, I don't think, I just see that clip, and I don't really think this guy includes me in his vision of America?
Slow down. Okay. No, I don't have any, as you said, empathy for people.
Do you understand why they might think that?
Please let me, if you don't mind, if I could finish. I have no empathy for people who derive their judgments about anything from 30-second clips on Media Matters. I do an hour live every single night. If you want to know what I think, I don't know that there's anyone.
Yeah, and the whole hour you spend saying nonsense like this.
Who's more transparent about it than I am. Not all of my views are correct. Not all of them are attractive. You may laugh at some of them, you may be offended by others, but I'm very clear about what I think. I believe
no, you're not.
That people are not the sum total of their genetics. I say that constantly, and as a Christian, I really mean it. So
one of the strategies whenever someone's confronting you with questions you can't really answer, because the truth is, yeah, I do believe that if you come from, Central America, South America, you are, this is what he would say, less than. I do believe, all those things. I do believe they're trying to replace white America. I have to do that in weird voices and in a really weird, fragmented way so that I can't get clipped saying, I do believe, and then something terrible. That's what he does believe. And so he can't really answer this because he doesn't want his audience who wants him to believe that to not like this answer. So what he'll do a lot of times in these types of interviews is just talk, try to fill the space until time's up.
By the kind of Dr. Seuss, please, version of race understanding, which is judge a person by what he does, not by how he looks.
Yeah, great point, agnostic sister. He's the most vague commentator on the news. He literally asks questions the entire time. I'm just asking questions. What do you believe, though? Stop asking questions that heavily insinuate things and just say your point.
I actually believe that. I grew up in Southern California in the 70s, and I say it constantly.
You do, but yet somehow, Tucker, I guess the thing that, you have an hour every night, as you said. Let me, and I want to move on to some other questions.
So that's it. Anywho, such a gee. Oh, Tucker. What are we going to do with you, Tucker? You mother Tucker. I saw someone's username was that. Pretty clever, gotta say. Alright. Read some comments and then we'll get to our next fun activity. Let's see. Tucker is all over the place because he's trying to avoid saying what he really feels. So true. Just 2 days ago, Tucker was saying the Highland Park shooter looked like someone he wouldn't sell a gun. Oh, gotcha. This guy is unhinged. Agreed. A New York Times investigation identified more than 400 episodes of Carlson's show in which he pushed core tenets of the conspiracy theory. Oh, yeah. Totally. Okay, so let's see. 1 second. what we're going to be looking at is a debate that political live streamer Destiny did. I know some of my audience knows about Destiny because some of y'all found me through Destiny. But if you don't, he's, left of center, political live streamer, gets in controversies a lot, but he does a lot of debates. And one of the debates that he did was about abortion. He had a partner who was actually a conservative, but she's pro-choice. And then they debated two pro-life people. And I think it's fascinating because some things on his side go wrong, mainly with his partner, in his partner's articulation of these points and kind of the rat holes, what I call it, rabbit holes, the rabbit holes that she takes the conversation down that actually don't help you get across pro-choice points, but then also the other side fall apart in many ways. And I think Destiny does a good job of trying to bring it back to let's talk about this in regard to abortion, because this I think makes all the difference. Heard of Destiny, never seen the content? Cool, yeah, it'll be good. So I really want to watch this. It's super long, but I'll be here for, you can stay in as long as you want. And I'll be commenting on it because I think us understanding how to make effective abortion arguments is actually really important. And because abortion is such an emotional issue, you have to be really good at bringing people to the center logic of it to have any chance of changing their opinion. And so this will be a great chance to go over this, and I'll point out, if you're trying to express your views on abortion, here's where they went wrong, here's when they went right, here's where the pro-lifers were strong and weak, and all that type of stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Before we do that, let me see if I can... I don't know if y'all will... Oh, let me delete this. Not sure if you will like this, but I kind of want to change, not completely, but for this. I don't know if theirs has a lot of visuals. We'll play with it, see if you like it. We'll start with this screen. What do y'all think for watching this? Let me see where they put their screens. Oh, I would be blocking all their screens. Let's see. If I go up here... Wait, no. No, stop. Good. Wait. If I go up here... Then maybe that'll be better. We'll start with this, but then switch to the other one if we want to.
Who are dependent upon me, my body, my...
So it's these two debating against these two. Again, I don't think his partner nails the delivery on a lot of these, because with abortion, there's all of these surrounding points that you can make that are important to talk about, but they're not what you should focus on if you're talking to someone who's pro-life, in my opinion. So we'll go through all that.
My womb. In order to survive, I dictate the rules. What I say goes.
When we roughly consider a person to be dead? I think we've all kind of come to a consensus on this, societally speaking.
Me, it's when the soul is no longer in the body.
Where is the soul at? Your whole argument is Loki's wager. That if I can't pinpoint 100% exactly what consciousness is, you're telling me that it is the same validity as your...
This is just a little preview, obviously.
Concept of a soul. If I make a statement that there is a pink demon floating behind you that spins around every time you turn around to look at it, and then you tell me I think that there is oxygen floating behind you. Neither of us can prove that. Are we on equal ground when we make those statements?
Yes, we are. You just don't have sex, and then you'll never get pregnant.
Wait, that was not the question.
If you just don't have sex, you can choose to never get... Nuns never get pregnant, right?
So here's a thought challenge that I would give to both of you. I think that when we talk about protecting human life, we're talking about conscious experiences.
Okay. Before we decide, or before we start, I need your guys' opinion quick in the chat. Do you want to watch this debate like this? Whoop. Not like that. Or like this. And I could be actually pretty big. Wow. So we'd be watching it like this. Or this. So ready? Put 1 in the chat if you like this. to watch stuff of this style, or put 2 in the chat if you like this. One. Oh, 2. It's kind of trippy. 1. Yeah, you get the point. All right, let me see. What you think? What you think? 2, 2, 1. We have 2 2s and 2 1s so far. This is upsetting. What do I do? All right, we have a second 2, third 2, 2. Okay, more 2s now. All right. If you hate it, let me know. Does this not trip you out? We'll see if we like it.
I don't think that there is any conscious experience worth protecting in the womb till around 20 to 24 weeks in gestation. That's when the necessary parts of the brain have developed to have that conscious experience. So I think things like first try... What?
Oh, just to be sure that you... Oh, I haven't started yet. I was just
oh my God, my bad. I'm sorry. There we go. Just kidding.
He's ready, you guys.
No problem.
He's James, you need to get this shit on the road. I got work to do, James. Come on.
We're ready. All right, here I go. So I'm going to go into a cold open where I say, hey, ready to debating ethics of abortion. We're starting right now with Stephen's opening statement. Thanks so much for being with us. And then I'll kick it over to you. 3, 2, 1. Thanks for being here, guys. Here I go for that cold open. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, guys, just to let you know, I'm just extremely low.
We are debating the ethics of abortion, and we are starting right now with Stephen's opening statement. Thanks so much for being with us, Stephen. The floor is all yours.
Hey, I think when we talk about protecting human life, we're talking about protecting conscious experiences. I think that the necessary parts in the brain that form to have a conscious experience appear around 20 to 24 weeks in the womb. I think that any abortion before that point is absolutely fine. Any abortion afterwards should probably be treated as similarly to killing a child. And that is my position on abortion. Go. Tree.
2 seconds. Forgive me, Stephen. I just got chopped up in the very beginning. If you could name that one more time. Forgive me. I just got
That's good. I'm glad I'm getting all my practice out here, okay?
If you're able to say that first part one more time.
Absolutely. When we talk about protecting human life, we're talking about protecting conscious experiences. So when I look to see what ought to be protected in the womb, it's going to be some creature that is having, or at least capable of having, a conscious experience. The necessary parts in your brain that form to have conscious experiences form at around 20 to 24 weeks. So I think things like first trimester abortions are absolutely fine and permissible. That's my position on abortion.
You got it. We'll kick it over to Tree, who is also on the pro-choice side. Thanks for being with us, Tree.
Is that audio better? Some people said they were too loud.
Thank you for having me. My parents divorced when I was 5 years old, and my mother got on welfare and taking custody of me. And we moved into a roach-infested apartment in one of the most dangerous ghettos in America, located in Anacostia, D.C. While there, I witnessed junkies overdosing, Black women and Black men shooting and stabbing each other, pimps physically abusing their women, along with women being sexually assaulted, and constant fights every day. Every now and then, while playing hide and seek with my friends, we would come across a dead body. But as a little girl, there were 2 things I had to do to stay alive in the hood. 1, avoid predatory men who pursued young girls like me at the time to either trick us out or to just flat out rape us. And 2, to survive the constant beatings of my mother. Saying that my mother beat me was just putting it lightly. She tortured me, and I'll spare you the details because I doubt seriously that you as an adult would survive what I did as a child. At the age of 11, I couldn't take it anymore and I ran away. And my father took custody of me, and that's when my life changed for the better. I was the first child on my father's side to attend college. On that day that I left for college, my father looked me in my eyes and said, "Keep your head in them books and your goddamn legs closed. If you get pregnant, you are no longer welcome back into my house and you'll be dead to me." Everything was going great until the spring of my sophomore year. I was dating a guy and we were very sexually active, but we used condoms and we was very careful. On one day while having intercourse, the condom broke broke and I freaked out. I called a local clinic and they told me to come back in 30 days to take a pregnancy test. On the 30th day, I went into the clinic to get a pregnancy test. However, this was not a Planned Parenthood clinic. This was a clinic funded by a Christian organization to convince Black women to avoid abortions. After giving the woman the cup of my urine, I was placed into a small room with a TV and a VCR and was told to watch a VHS tape called The Silent Scream, which was a pro-life propaganda piece that would pull the heartstrings of women, making them feel guilty about wanting to have an abortion. When the tape was over, the counselor came into my room with a box of Kleenex tissue, and she was shocked to see that my face was just as dry as was then before I even entered the room. While sitting there at the desk, she said that she had my test results back, and she said, now before I share your test results, I want you to know, after watching that video, knowing that the test could come back positive and you could be pregnant, do you still want to kill your baby? Do you want to go to hell? Do you want your baby to go to heaven while you meet the devil? I looked that white woman in her eyes and I said, lady, I'd rather go to hell than to live on earth as a poor Black woman.
So, impactful story for sure, but this is kind of where I start being like, that's, you know, your experiences are important and all that type of stuff. But I think, first, if you're talking to a pro-lifer, you have to first understand what you're arguing over, and it's not whether or not like certain situations are difficult, whether or not all these things. It's only for them going to come down to, is it its own life that gets its own individual rights? And that's why you have to start by explaining, like, in the first parts of the pregnancy, the baby, literally, I use baby for the pro-lifers, but the fetus, that being is literally being biologically produced by the mother's body. And the being, for much of those even earlier phases, as Destiny was saying, doesn't even have consciousness, can't experience that pain. But then also the being that's producing the other being ultimately has the authority over if they want to keep going through that biological process. And that's why people draw a line, like a thick line at viability, because then if you don't want to carry that being any longer with viability, you could keep the being alive. So if it can be kept alive without the mother, then keep it alive, of course. But if the mother doesn't want to keep going through the process of producing another being with her biological functions, then that's her decision.
She got up, got my test results, and I wasn't pregnant. But I want you all to know that if I was pregnant, I would not hesitate to get an abortion. So I want to ask my opponents, instead of going for banning abortions, how about you do the following first? Eliminate child poverty, improve the maternity leave here in America, improve Medicaid and Medicare to help and also help fund health facilities that will help lower the maternal mortality rate among Black women, who, by the way, have the highest mortality rate than any other race in America, and improve the foster care in America, just to name a few.
So again, this is one of those things that's like, it's important and relevant, but it like 3 steps down. It's good to point out inconsistency. So it is good to point out, like, they pretend to be pro-life, but the second that it's birth, they don't give a poop, so why aren't you trying to improve the lives of actual birthed beings, birthed humans? So that's important. But I do think if I'm really trying to convince someone, I know that they aren't convinced by those arguments, so I'd rather just get right to the root of it, which is what Destiny does in a little bit, which is like, let's discuss why or why not this is a life. It gets very philosophical, and it'll be really fun once that all starts going down.
Why aren't you fixing these problems first instead of adding to it by trying to ban abortions? I yield.
You got to thank you very much for those opening statements from the pro-choice side. We're going to kick it over to Rachel and Kendon for their openings as well. If it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, folks, we're a neutral channel hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. We hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because we have plenty more juicy debates coming up in the future. With that, Rachel, and Kendon, thanks so much for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Do you want to go for it, Rachel?
Sure, I'll go for it. Tree gave a really compelling personal anecdote there. And I think that what she proved is that even children who are born in the worst of circumstances can make a really fantastic life for themselves, and that they're valuable and their life has meaning.
Yeah, again, see, I don't think making the point that the world that a lot of these to-be lives would be born into would be tragic and hard and stuff, that's not convincing, because like a life is as valuable regardless. It's the same amount of value regardless of if it's going to be in a poor, tough area or like a rich. That's not relevant. What's relevant, it's important to talk about, of course, but it's the most relevant piece of it, which I'll keep coming back to, is how do I move you on your stance that being within the mother is its own life worthy of individual rights. And the most convincing is to go through how when one being is biologically producing another, that being should have the say. Right, so that's the only thing that's really going to make the difference for somebody. And in my own personal life, that's the only thing I've moved people on, and then they understand, oh, this is what we're talking about. But just saying like they're going to be born into a tough situation, so that's why they should be aborted, it's like, no, that's not convincing.
And they can grow up to affect the world in a really wonderful and positive way, just like she has. I'm not going to take that angle on this. I'm going to kind of stick to a more logical, rational type of argumentation here, which is to say that if you look at it historically, abortion was something that 100 years ago, when it was first legalized in the USSR, was supposed to be temporary. It was considered a stopgap measure until birth control would be legal and widely available, and then it was generally believed that abortion would be safe, legal, and rare. If you're my age, I'm 41 years old, you might remember the propaganda of the 80s and 90s was that abortion was a necessary evil, and the phrase was safe, legal, and rare. We're 100 years into birth control being legal. It's widely available, super cheap and or free for almost anyone. You can walk into a clinic and get birth control, usually for free. You can get condoms for free from health centers all over the place. You can get a prescription from Medicaid and get a $4 a month prescription for abortion or for birth control pills. We have 18 plus well-tested forms of birth control, yet abortion is still extremely popular. It hasn't gone away. It hasn't become safe, legal, and rare. In fact, now the argument is people want absolutely no limitations on it whatsoever. We have shout your abortion. We have people who are proud to have abortions. We have people who want to tell you how they've had multiple abortions and see it as like a fight the patriarchy kind of thing to have an abortion. You're pushing back against the system by doing this. The problem with that is that it does not fight back against the system. It doesn't push back against anything. It's actually very conducive to the system. If you have a problem with things like that, it's abortion actually is a eugenics industry at this point. In the USSR, when they made abortions free in state hospitals without any restrictions between 1920 and 1935, it got so bad that they got to the point where Stalin, when he took power, had to make abortion illegal again because you had 3 abortions for every 1 live birth in Russia, and the birth rate plummeted. And this was after they'd already been through World War I and a famine, and it was clear that they were not going to survive as a nation unless they did something to stop abortion. We could easily end up in that situation again if we do what the far left wants or what abortion advocates want, which is it's a woman's choice up until the baby is born. So I don't think there's any historical evidence that abortion is helpful. I don't think there's an argument that it helps babies.
And again, that's just like, when we talk about it as, is it helpful? That's not relevant, right? It's interesting. But if you believed that it was the same as a baby, I don't care if it's helpful or not, you couldn't kill it, right? So we have to only discuss, do we think it's, gets its own individual rights or falls under the rights of the being producing it? But these conversations get so abstracted and brought into all these different facets of this discussion, and then all of a sudden we're saying, is it a helpful measure economically or something? And that's not relevant.
It's this argument that your life isn't worth something if you're going to be poor or have a really rough time of it. Believe me, we have a lot of sympathy for those situations. I was in situations like that myself. However, there's more to life than that. So my position is that it's a human life from conception, and that you wouldn't have to kill the baby if it wasn't murder. So.
Thank you so much to Larry for the super chat. He said, "Hey Luke, have you seen the abortion debate between Charlie Kirk and comedian, former presidential candidate Ben Glebe? It's pretty amazing. Much love." I have. Very funny. Again, I don't think Ben Glebe did a good job, except for the because they don't make clear. Let's just talk about why I believe it's not warranted of its own individual rights yet. That's all that matters in this conversation. And they go all over the place. But that moment where he did the dolphin fetus thing was really good. Ignorant stance, me? Or what? Is her background like a Catholic cathedral, or am I? No. She's in a church right now. That's hilarious.
You got to kick it over to Kendon as well.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Kendon Farr. So, much like Rachel, I'm not so much pro-life as anti-choice. I don't believe that any human agency should decide whether an individual human life should end arbitrarily. I've noticed as well, whenever we talk about this issue...
Oh, Larry, yeah, that was good too, the January 6th stuff, yeah.
Whenever one talks about this issue, a lot of the terms that we use are euphemistic. The word abortion is actually the wrong word. Abortion is another word for
Oh, okay, agnostic sister. Thank you. I gotcha.
Miscarriage. What we're actually describing as a termination, which is more honest because we're terminating a life before it's truly emerged from the womb and flourished. We also refer to clumps of cells as opposed to fetus or baby, tied to anesthetize, is that the right word? Sort of to soften the blow, to massage the truth. It destroys human life, but not just human life, but all life chances, any impact that a human being might have. And I noticed that the personal autonomy argument only really applies in this issue. My body, my choice. You very rarely hear that phrase in any other context. Unlike death, I don't really care when the baby becomes conscious or not, because eventually, if left to its own devices, if it's a healthy, normal pregnancy, it will become conscious. So I'm mindful of the fact that consciousness is an inevitable part of the growth within the womb. It appears to me that the pro-choice advocacy is mainly economic rather than moral. Abortion is seen as the cheaper option, and this is where I want to tap into what Tree was saying earlier. Now, Tree's obviously given us a harrowing story, and I have genuine sympathy for her, and she's obviously come up hard, and I respect that. She talked about how, instead of banning abortions, why don't we improve the welfare system, have healthcare provision for women and things like that. As someone who lives in northwest England, and as someone who has studied the American...
Again, I don't think saying instead of banning abortion, we should invest in these welfare programs is good. I think saying you don't care clearly because look at how you leave people to suffer once they're actually born is revealing hypocrisy, but not necessarily making a strong philosophical argument.
American healthcare system, quite intently, it's my opinion that the healthcare system in your country is a joke. No offense to any Americans listening. The problem is that because abortion is no longer just safe, legal, and rare, it's as common as cookies. There's no incentive to improve any of your welfare systems because it's cheaper simply to kill the baby. In the same way, there's no, it's the difference between building shelters for the homeless and exterminating the homeless. Both would solve the problem of homelessness, but one of them is brutal and it's unconscionable. For me, abortion is unconscionable. You don't need to improve food stamps or women's shelters or anything like that if there's no baby to feed. And I think that's the reason why a lot of pro-choice activists take that position, at least in politics. That's kind of an opening statement. That's my ramble over. I'll kick it over to somebody else.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening. We're going to kick it right into open dialogue. Want to let you know, folks, if you'd like to hear more, if you'd like to learn more about any of our guest views, you can by clicking on their links, which are down in the description box waiting for you right now. And that includes if you're listening to this debate through the podcast, as we put our guest links in the description box for the podcast as well. And with that, thanks so much, Destiny, Tree, Rachel, and Kendon. The floor is all yours for open dialogue.
So I would like to ask Rachel, I want to say that don't look at my story as...
Get ready. It gets so intense between the two women on the panel. It's really awesome.
A typical thing. I am not the norm. I'm very rare. A lot of children die in the hood through stray bullets or through the abuse of their own parents. As a matter of fact, the reason I just spared this because I didn't have that much, but the reason why I ran away is because I began to get taller. And as I get, my father's 6'7" and I'm 6'3". So my mother's 5'1". So I began to have a growth sprout and I began to get stronger. And I got tired of those beatings, those horrific beatings. And one day I just grabbed the belt that my mom used in the belt buckle. And the way she looked at me, that was like the worst beating I ever got. And I thought she was going to kill me. But in my head, because the ghetto has raised me in such a hard way, I thought, well, I'll kill my mother before she kills me. And I thought, well, because I was a Christian at the time, let me run away. Let me run away so I don't go to jail or I won't die from my mother trying to kill me. Because eventually she said, we have a thing in the Black community that Black parents tell to their children, I brought you into this world, I'll take you out. That's how they feel, and it has happened many times. So don't look at my situation as something that's the norm. It's not the norm. Also, I want to address your argument in reference to Boris.
See, again, all of that is interesting, but not relevant to whether or not abortion should be legal or not. You know what I'm saying?
Birth control. Birth control has been going on for centuries. You're pagan, right? Somebody was telling me you practice a pagan religion. Rachel? No?
Sorry. Oh, no, I'm Orthodox Christian.
Okay, you're Orthodox. Oh, well, that makes it easier. Well, why is it that God is allowed to kill babies, but I'm not?
Well, to address your argument here, just because, your story is very emotional, it's very harrowing, but we can't base an entire debate of ethics over, my personal story, yours, Destiny's, or Kendon's. And although suffering is a reality of life, we're never going to eliminate suffering. You're never going to completely eliminate poverty, disease, abuse, or suffering. And
I eliminated my suffering if I had an abortion, I would have.
You've heard the story about the 10-year-old that was raped and denied an abortion because she was 3 days past the heartbeat. Yeah. And this is why talking about rape in the context of abortion is really important, because I think that's the quickest way to help someone understand that there should be some post-conception ability for people to decide if they want to go through that process. You're forcing a 10-year-old. Obviously, we're gonna do that. Last time y'all made. Can you see my legs while I do this? Oh no, perfect. You're forcing a 10-year-old, or I guess she's going across state lines, which is good, but you're trying to force a 10-year-old to use her body to create another being when she didn't ask for it. She was raped. Oh my gosh, it's so vile.
Eliminated my suffering if I had an abortion.
Well, but to say that the way to solve these problems is to just kill babies before they're born is a very eugenics sort of statement. To say that it would be better for them to be dead than to grow up in poverty. First of all, I wouldn't.
How is eugenics equivalent to an income situation?
Well, that's exactly what Margaret Sanger proposed, was that, these people are
uneducated. She did that because she thought blacks were inferior. She thought we were subhuman. That's the reason why Margaret Sanger did that.
you're making the argument that it would be better for people to be dead than to be poor or suffer.
No.
And I'm saying that
That's
you
not my
can't eliminate
argument.
suffering. And
No,
what's your-
my argument is that I have dominion over what's going on in my uterus, and nothing within my uterus have more dominion over me. I am.
Do you agree that abortion isn't always super necessary, only in the cases of health issues and rape? No. So my point is that if you can think about rape in the context of abortion, then you understand that clearly there is a fundamental difference between the rights that a human life should have before it can exist separate from the mother biologically, as opposed to after it can exist separate from the mother biologically. So that's what that proves to you in the most extreme example. But if you bring yourself to understand that someone shouldn't have to create another being with their body if they don't want to, if they're raped, then that means you automatically concede that that being in there is not the same as a viable life. So that warrants its own individual rights, independent from the mother. So once you understand that, it does have to apply just philosophically and logically to any case of abortion that is before that certain point. Agnostic sister, I hear you, but people believe it's like the same though. They believe that it's your body and it's a whole nother life's body that's like as independent rights as yours. You know what I mean? So like that's why just screaming like the my body, my choice thing never made sense to me, because I think you're ignoring that the opposition believes it's another body warranted of its own rights. And that's why you have to communicate to them that while there is another being there, it isn't yet warranted of its own individual rights. For a lot of the reasons that they'll get into in this. It's really fascinating if you stick around. Super fascinating, the specific points they end up getting to in this debate.
That's why I thought she was a god. I thought she was pagan because I was going to bring the goddess and the god situation in there. But since you are religious, I'm just saying, like, you know, God don't have no problem with abortions, but let me just say this. There was no such thing as abortion during the biblical time because abortion is a medical procedure. There was lots of miscarriages, and there was straight out just God killing, like after you give birth, like God just killing children, just straight up killing children. So I'm saying, obviously, God does not have a problem with just killing children after they're born. Why would he? And there's also scriptures in the Bible where he also...
Again, this is all very not where you want to go in an abortion debate. You're kind of all over the place.
Have women to drink a potion that gives you a miscarriage. So if there's no problem with having miscarriages and God killing children, why is it a problem for me?
I'm not making a religion. I am Christian, but I'm not making a religious argument.
Even if you're trying to appeal to religious people by like quoting their own scripture and stuff, I don't think saying the line, "Why does God get to do it and not me?" is your bingo card. Like that's a little bit weird. Why does God get to do something that I don't? Again, to anyone who's hopping on, I'm gonna be criticizing even the side of this debate that I agree with, just because I think abortion is one of the hardest debates out there, and so I think people need to be well versed in how to effectively argue for what you believe in. Z King, thank you so much for the super chat. He said, have you heard of the burning tower analogy for abortion? I have not. Let's see. Burning tower analogy abortion. Wait. Let's see. Twitter thread that undermines the core argument against abortion has gone viral, causing a stir from those on both sides of the debate. Science fiction author and journalist Patrick challenged one of the central notions used by pro-lifers that life begins at conception, and that therefore a human embryo holds the same value as a human child. Really? A paywall? That's so aggravating. Can you why is this not deleting? What is the analogy? Someone summarize it for me. Oh, thank you. Z-King, another. You double sent it. Thank you so much. 2 super chats saying the same thing.
Which is that you don't stop suffering. You don't end suffering by killing people before they can live. By that logic, it would make sense to just wipe out the planet. Then we end suffering. Just kill all the homeless. Just kill all the drug addicts. Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
false comparison. No, it's a false comparison because there's something growing inside my uterus. Okay, and
yes, and that thing is a person. So at what point does point does the fetus? What point does the baby inside your uterus have bodily autonomy? Because you're making
when
a
it can
bodily
survive
autonomy.
outside my uterus.
Okay, but at one point you couldn't survive outside someone else's uterus.
Oh well, here's that you asked me a question.
Maybe the burning tower analogy was like, because I've heard it before, if there was a bunch of fertilized embryos sitting in like test tubes and then like a baby sitting there and the building was burning down, you just could grab one. Like, which one would you grab? Obviously the baby, but again, that doesn't even that doesn't to me land great either, because at the end of the day you could argue like one's more valuable or less valuable. It doesn't mean they have different rights, or like you would save one over the other, but it doesn't mean they have less rights. Like, for example, if you said one person was gonna have to die, someone who's like super old, or someone who's like a teenager, you're like, well, one of them has a potential for more life, so maybe I save. But like, that doesn't mean one is more or less valuable. They're both people with individual rights and they're valuable, you know?
Question, I answered it.
Again, I don't believe that about the fetus. I'm saying, but they do. So you have to convince them on that to go anywhere.
I answered. It has an autonomy when it can survive outside my uterus. Usually when it's like 5 months, right? It's usually when it's 5 months and above,
but
right?
That argument also doesn't make sense, and here's why. Because when a baby is viable at 22 weeks, it still can't survive without intense round-the-clock care until it's what? I mean, at what?
Okay, first really dumb pro-life point here. If you are someone who's pro-life, again, you have points. I'm happy to hear them out, but don't make stupid points, please. Okay, here's what I mean by that. I'll get to you, Larry, 1 second. People who act like they don't understand the distinction between a being biologically dependent on another being and being in other ways and like environmentally dependent, so or situationally dependent. So yes, all the way up until you're like in your 10, 11, 12, 13, I don't know, you're dependent on people to help you survive. You need them to buy food for you. You need them to, all those things. That is fundamentally different than being biologically dependent on one being only. Because here's why. In the real world, if you don't feel like you can take care of your child once they've been, once they're viable and birth and all that stuff, you can give that up to someone else. And they can do all of the things that you would do. They can take care of it. They can keep it alive. If you decide you can't take care of and don't want to go through the process of being pregnant with a being, you don't have the option to not go through that and keep the being alive. Does that make sense? So like her argument of, oh, it doesn't matter, the viability question doesn't matter because either way, this being needs round-the-clock care. Yes, but not from one being biologically. Doug, if you heard my point on that, it would make sense. I'm saying we shouldn't compare the values of lives based on who you would save in a burning building.
What point
do
we know?
Thank you so much, Larry, for the super chat. He said, have you ever hate watched The Quartering? He makes me sick, but I watch to see what the white right is up to, lol. His Roe v. Wade vid sums him up, lol. I have not. The Quartering. I have not even heard of that person. They're like a YouTuber also? That's crazy. No, I haven't, but yeah, lots of those peeps make me mad.
No longer need people to survive. Are we allowed to kill everyone before they're 16, before they're 18,
if you
before
depend
they're 12?
upon my body to survive, I get to make the rules. If you survive, if you are dependent upon me, my body, my womb, in order to survive, I dictate the rules. What I say goes.
Okay, Tree, but that logic would have to apply to a baby who was born at term at 9 months. When that baby is born, if the mother does not feed it, it dies. No. Yes.
No, that's not true. That's not true. That is false. Anybody could feed that baby. Anybody. It's not dependent on the mother. It's dependent on someone.
The exact same argument.
No. Baby can be
yes,
fed
logically it's the same argument.
No, because a lot of women can't lactate, okay?
But someone has to feed it.
Exactly.
It's dependent on someone.
But it does,
so that person can say, look, if I don't feed you, you get to die. And that is a thing. There are people who do argue that.
Wrong. Other people can feed the baby. It's not, we have a thing called, there's a community to raise a child.
But it depends on someone, right?
So if the community. You're saying that if I died after giving childbirth and my child lives, you're saying that my child is going to die too because mommy's not there to breastfeed it. That's just silly.
No, hold
on. Let me just finish saying this. The child, you're just straight out lying. The child can be fed through other means, through formula, through a wet nurse, and through other means. The child does not need me after
You're missing what I'm saying. I'm saying the logical extension of your argument is that nobody has a right to live until they are no longer dependent on someone else for survival.
That's not my argument.
Biologically dependent. But I do think it's fine to I do think it's fine, or it's a conversation to be had about one of the things Destiny was saying was when they start developing consciousness, if they can feel pain, similar to how animals aren't don't have the same rights as humans have, but we also should be trying to limit animal cruelty. So if you start understanding scientifically that at a certain point, once they've developed consciousness, they feel pain through whatever process, if you want to draw a line certain place, I think there's genuine good faith conversations to be had about all that, but pretending that it's conception to me is crazy, because that's where we can make the really clear points about rape and stuff like that.
Argument is that if you can live.
But there's differences even among pro-choice people, you know? Where... What are we talking about here, you know? And I think that's totally fine and genuine. This is a confusing topic.
If you depend upon
it's just not confusing if I'm arguing with someone who's saying literally it's a life worthy of its own individual rights at conception. Come on.
Argument. Listen to me closely. If you depend upon my body to survive, I get to dictate the rules. And what I'm saying to you, like I said earlier, if the baby can, I think I did some research prior to coming here because I just was told today I can come. A child has a chance of surviving a preemie at 5 months. Hey, there is that. But so therefore, underneath that, and I'm willing to say I like the heartbeat bill, but I also rather say in 3 months is a good number. But I'm not. There's no hill I'm willing to die on. What I'm saying is that I'm giving you the date where I'm giving you my cutoff.
I guess this would be my point. I'm fine with restrictions as long as it's like very safe and accessible, and then we allow people to do it before a certain point that is reasonable. So like you have enough time to realize that you're pregnant, to make the decision, go through whatever process you want to make that decision, and then determine if you want to go through that process. Yeah.
Period. The baby can survive outside my body. Good luck.
I'll
Right.
give you
And
a
what
quick
I'm
rejoinder,
trying
Rachel,
to,
but then we
Sure.
got to kick it over to Stephen. Stephen, you look especially enthralled. So go ahead, Rachel. And then
Or
we'll
I'm letting them do the back and forth instead of, because for abortion arguments, there's like 12 different ways to approach it. So if we keep like yoink it to get to like 20 different arguments, I'd rather let them run down the whole like
Right.
argument.
What I'm trying to do is show that what Tree is doing is making an arbitrary decision about when someone is autonomous and can live on their own, and that by logical extension, her argument means that when a baby is born, if the person...
How are you pretending you don't understand the difference between being dependent on someone to keep you alive and being dependent on one being biologically? There's such a big difference there.
Who is charged with taking care of it says, look, this baby is a burden to me. It depends on me.
Just so you know, agnostic sister, Salim is definitely approaching this in really good faith. I think he's just kind of, asking honest questions. Yeah.
Me to live, I have to get up in the middle of the night. I have to feed it, or the group or the home that it's at, whoever is charged with taking care of a child, because children cannot survive without round-the-clock care for years after birth.
Doesn't need the mother to do that.
I'm telling you that logically, because I do debates all the time. I'm a student of logical argumentation. If you're going to argue that you have the right to kill a human being because it depends on you for survival, then by logical extension, you would have to apply that to after birth abortion or after birth murder.
The baby does not have to depend upon a mother after she gave birth to it, and you know that. You're just being disingenuous.
I'm not. It's not disingenuous.
So
it's
how does the baby?
Logical.
So answer this question. I'm gonna show how very you're disingenuous.
Salem. Sorry, I forgot again. Yeah, and again, Salem, it's not about us judging whether or not it's a responsible or lazy choice or whatever. It's about we are able to determine that a being who is producing another being within themselves should have the authority over whether they continue that process or not. They shouldn't be mandated to continue producing like a clump of cells at that point,
Mother dies at birth.
No, it's Salim. Wait, no, you're saying no to what? Y'all tell me if you're freaking out about something, you gotta tell me what it is, because you're a little bit delayed.
The baby gonna die because there's nobody to give breast milk to it? The baby's gonna die because there's nobody gonna feed it?
Someone has to feed it, right?
Answer the question. If the
someone
mother dies,
doesn't feed it.
No. Answer the question.
I did.
If the
I'm answering the question. Yes. This is perfectly valid logical argumentation.
That when a mother dies, that nobody's going to take charge of the baby and feed it. That's what you're saying.
If someone doesn't, it will die.
But
and what you're
when
saying,
has that happened?
I'm telling you that logically,
that doesn't happen.
The
You're
argument
just lying.
you're making
that doesn't happen.
Hold on one sec, just to be sure
used.
that we can hear each of you.
That doesn't happen. The baby is born. If the mother dies, somebody takes care of the baby. She's saying that if the baby doesn't die, if the mother decides that she doesn't want to breastfeed the baby's going to die. That does not happen.
That's not what I'm saying. You're not understanding. I'm sorry, but you don't understand logic. What I'm saying is that the argument you're making could be used for people to say,
illogical.
it's my if this baby depends on me to live, then it is within my rights to kill it at any point if I
That's not
decide
what
that
I'm
that's too
saying.
burdensome.
That's
It is
not
the
what I'm saying.
logical
That's not
extension of
what
your
I
argument,
said.
ma'am.
That's
I'm
not
sorry
what I
that you don't
said.
understand
I
arguments.
said I did not say that. I said when the baby's
don't
outside,
understand
with the baby
arguments.
outside. No, you don't understand my argument, and you know
Your
I'm questioning you.
argument
That's
is
why you're
based on
trying to.
feelings
That's
and
why
it's
you're
arbitrary.
reframing it. You're
speaking over
reframing
each
my
other-
argument.
Hold on. If we have too much speaking over each other, we won't be able to hear either of you. Just want to be sure.
No, she's reframing my argument. She's sitting up here saying, if you had the baby and you don't, and you gave birth to the baby and you don't feed the baby, then that means you can kill the baby. That's not exactly
That's not what I said.
Okay,
She doesn't understand what I'm saying.
Hold on, because you
I'll
won't
just,
answer
I'll
this
just
question.
yield. No, she did.
Yeah, no, yield
this is
because
way
if
over
you
All right,
her
hold
head.
on. Let's let the tree finish, and then we'll come back.
Hold on. I'm gonna ask.
Z King, you can come on, but like quick. I'm calling you right now. Quick, say what you want to say. Okay, call me back when you're ready, Z King, but it has to be quick. Just say your point.
Kendon, and I'm gonna make it plain again. If the mother
Doug, I've had the exact same thought. Oh my gosh.
dies after giving birth to the child, does that mean that the child dies because there's no one to take care of it?
That was not my argument.
That was your argument.
No.
I'm sorry, I thought you yelled. Why are you still talking? You said you yield. I still hear blah, 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 blah.
There we go. Sup?
Okay, so remember when I brought up the burning tower analogy? You didn't agree with that because you were saying it's the devaluation of a life. But then you said, hey, hold on, I'm losing my train of thought. It was, crap, I losing my train of thought. You just said it. I don't know how I'm forgetting this. It was like,
about how, like, even if you could determine that you would probably choose one or the other, I don't think it necessarily means that the other that you left behind is like.
I know what it was. What it was.
Go for it.
It was whenever the girl brought up about dependency. You're like, how don't they realize that there's a different level of dependence when it's after birth? But like you said, they still think it's a life. So wouldn't that same logic apply to the burning tower analogy?
I completely am not grabbing onto wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I brought up the burn tower analogy, the idea is devaluation of life. That's why you didn't agree with it. But then the girl in the debate brought up dependency, right? If you're able to support it while carrying and giving birth, you're like, those are two completely different things, which they are. I agree. But again, from the pro-life perspective, you think it's always life in every scenario. So any support would count. So wouldn't that same logic follow?
Dang it, I'm literally not. Wait. Let me try to take. Let me think. Okay, so I'm not getting it because my point was that in any situation where you have to pick one person in a burning building, like you're gonna pick one, but everyone in the building, even if you don't pick them, still may be worthy of their own individual rights. Whereas a being that is being produced by another being, it isn't yet worthy of its own individual rights.
But the dependency factor still involves the valuation of life, because you were saying how it's different when they're carrying and giving birth, which again I agree, but from the pro-life perspective, because they think it's a life, any support would count towards it, so it wouldn't devalue the life any less. Just like when I brought up with the burning tower analogy, it's the same thing. That's what I'm pointing out.
Wait, any support wouldn't
like okay,
devalue?
like she's I don't remember what she said verbatim, but it was about how you said there's a difference between carrying and then giving birth. Remember when they were going back and forth about how if she gave birth, that means that because I don't remember her name, but she was making the argument that it was dependent on her body, so she gets to make the decision. And then the other girl was saying, well, does that mean because you give birth that you are no longer or that the child is no longer dependent on you.
You're saying that from the pro-life perspective, like that type of support is the same because it's a life on either side?
Because they think it's life, so they think whether it's biological support or after birth, then it still doesn't value any less. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true. I think what I would say to like the pro-lifer who believes that is, because what was upsetting me was not that she believes what she believes necessarily. It was that it seemed like she wasn't understanding the distinction that was being made. And I think you can say it's a life on either side. One's biological and one's not biological. That's fine. But I think both should be mandated. But at least acknowledge the distinction that the other person was trying to make, which is that there's a fundamental difference between like using your bodily functions and it has to be yours and it's all biological, compared to like someone out there has to take care of this baby or it's gonna die. I guess.
I see what you're,
and I know you agree with me, so I'm not trying to convince you, but I'm just saying like, yeah, I guess that's where I would go with them.
Yeah, that's what I was saying for like from the pro-life perspective. It's the same thing. It's devaluing based on the circumstances, because one is dependent biologically, and then, post-birth, there's a different type of dependency. That's what I was pointing out, and that's why I brought up the... What?
Wait. Oh, that's what... But, wait,
Okay, I'll lay it out. I'll summarize. I brought up the original burning tower analogy. The idea is devaluation of life.
But what do you mean by that? What do you mean devaluation of life?
Well, I mean... It's the whole conversation. Is it ethical? At what point does it become ethical to make that decision about what people consider life? I'm thinking from the pro-life perspective here. So if, again, with the burning tower analogy, this is putting them in the position where they're choosing, a 2-year-old crying baby or a petri dish with potential life.
Mm-hmm.
And the devaluation of life that I keep bringing up is the idea that from a pro-life perspective, like you brought up, you're making them decide which life is more valuable. Again, we choose the 2-year-old crying baby because it's a 2-year-old crying baby. And then I connected that to what she was talking about when it comes to dependency, whether it's biological or after birth. It's the same thing, because her argument was, because there is dependency, it is more valuable to keep it alive. Do you see what I mean?
Because there is dependency. It's
like the biological dependency and then the afterbirth dependency. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So she was saying because of that it's not any less of a life, because it's dependent as a life upon
something.
Yeah, exactly. So she was basically, I perceive that as she was saying it deserves life because it needs not dependency. Yeah, no, it needs dependency.
Well, I guess she's saying that dependency doesn't make you not valuable.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So how is that any different than the burning tower analogy? Because it's devaluation of life in either circumstance from the perspective of a pro-life person.
Right, but I don't think the burning analogy is like a good argument, because I think if you believe they're both lives, then yeah, you could make a logical argument for why you should save one of the lives, but it doesn't necessarily mean the other isn't a life.
I mean, from a pro-life perspective, I see what you're talking about, but I find the same line of logic following the dependency thing. But obviously, it's a different circumstance, but it results in what is more valued.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean, though? I probably explained it weird initially, but
I kind of do, and at the same time, I feel really dumb right now because I'm like not understanding what you're saying. Like I feel like I should. But
no, I'm just not being very cohesive.
I don't know,
'Cause
or
I
it's
just
me.
like
I don't know.
this
Well,
idea.
who knows? But yeah, generally, to me, I think there's a better way to approach all of this with pro-life people.
No.
So,
There's
like,
better arguments. I was just saying.
no, not you. I'm saying, like, generally, even if I'm not necessarily getting your exact point, I think we do agree on, like, the pro-life people have good arguments from their perspective that we don't address effectively with some of the pathways we take the conversation down.
Yeah, that's actually, I would say that's like a natural outcome. I didn't really intend for that. I literally just realized that logic occurring, and I was like, wait, wouldn't it be the same idea in that circumstance? But like you brought up, it's good to address this because you can have good counter arguments being pro-life.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
I guess that was it.
Thank you, sir. No, I love it.
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
love, especially you, I feel like I really get it quickly hopping on. Like, a lot of people just have it takes them like an hour to jump on Discord for some reason. So it's very appealing to like talk with people if they can quickly jump on and say something. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, you get back to your stream.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
Okay, I'm talking to Kendon.
Thank you so much for the super chat from CA. You're amazing. Amazing.
Trying to give somebody else to talk. Kendon, answer that question. If a woman dies after she gave birth to a baby, the baby's outside the womb, does the baby die too?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, the men can have it now.
Okay, fair enough.
CA, we're watching an abortion debate, so that's what's going on.
Do you want to go for it, Destiny? I'm not sure how to come back from that one, if I'm being honest.
So here, this is like my simple question for Kendon and Rachel. When do you consider a person dead?
The problem of death is a great philosophical conundrum. Even scientists find it difficult to identify actual, death. We know symptoms of death. For example, obviously decomposition is the obvious one. But obviously the body doesn't die at once. It dies in stages. There's brain death. There's all sorts of things. So when do I consider a person dead? When they're 6 feet under and they've decomposed so thoroughly that not even a talented doctor could bring them back.
So if I were to chop a person's head off and I were to show you the body and it's not 6 feet under yet and hasn't begun to decompose, you would say that person is still alive?
No.
So with this isn't, I don't think that...
Whoa. Thank you so much, Tina, for the super chat. Wow, thank you so much. Tina said, am I missing something here? Has modern medicine advanced to the point we can keep a fetus alive outside of the womb at the time of conception at 3 weeks, 6 weeks? Because if that's the case, there's no need for abortion. I don't think modern medicine has gotten to that point. I think there's some ability, there's definitely an ability to fertilize an egg, and then I don't know when they're able to like start incubating like a fetus and stuff, but I know right now you wouldn't be able to safely extract like a fetus from a womb and through that process keep it alive and then incubate it for the time that it needs to be produced technologically. But I do think once modern medicine got to the point where at any point during a pregnancy, you could safely remove it from the mother, keep it alive. That should be what we do. If you can keep it alive, right? But if the only way to keep it alive is to force another being to be producing it biologically, then that's kind of where the conversation is, the debate, that we're going over today is. But yeah, if modern medicine could literally safely extract like a newly fertilized thing, then I guess you could just do that.
Decomposition, we can decompose as living people. Frostbite might be an example of this.
Yeah, this is true. Living necrosis.
Yeah, and we're probably dead before decomposition happens. probably dead before
Yep.
we're buried, hopefully. So
Yep.
backing up, I think I'll try again. Reasonably, I understand there's a hot philosophical debate, maybe, I guess, around
Thank you again for your super chat, Tina.
A person is dead, but when we roughly consider a person to be dead? I think we've all kind of come to a consensus on this, societally speaking.
Yeah.
To me, it's when
Yeah,
the soul is
okay.
no longer in the body.
Where is the soul at?
Well, now that's a metaphysical.
Yeah, that's stupid. If you ever say that your views on abortion are dependent on, or are based on when you think a soul is developed, that's not going to win over anybody. You have to make something more tangible that people can get on board with.
Question. That's a philosophical question that I'm sure you're not interested in, because I remember in our previous debate when I talked about souls, you scoffed. So.
Well, sure, but how do you tell me when do you know the soul's left the body? Let me ask that. If I show you a corpse that's rotted 6 months, do you think that the soul is still in that body? Or if I show you somebody that just had a heart attack and they're on the table, is their soul still in their body?
No,
Maybe.
I think I can grant you this without damaging my argument. Let's just say that death is after the heart has stopped and there's no more brain activity. Let's just grant you that and see where it goes.
Sure. Okay. I think that's fair. I think before we even get into slide debate tactics, I think people generally agree that death is when you cease having a conscious experience. It seems like that's not happening anymore. It used to be heart death. We found ways to keep the heart going a little bit. And as long as there's some sort of brain activity going on where it seems like you can have a conscious experience, people seem pretty comfortable to say you're either alive or dead based on that, right? If you're in a coma, why do we keep people in comas alive? Because hopefully they wake up. If we think that they're never going to wake up, then we pull the plug. So I think generally we say that death happens at the cessation of a conscious experience. So turning around, I would apply that to the beginning of life. If we don't say that life ends when the body is completely decomposed, when the body is completely destroyed, when some biological processes happen, when we say death happens when a conscious experience ends, well, when I look to the beginning to see, well, what is the start of our experience that we want to protect, I'd probably say it's the beginning of a conscious experience. I think that's the most consistent way to define the parts of life that we're interested in protecting.
But like the coma.
Salim says, I don't think it is a big necessity to win over somebody. For me, it's about discussing and experiencing our beliefs. Yeah, that's good. For me, I always want to be moving people over. That's like my whole purpose in all this. But
the patient who has the possibility of a conscious experience in the future, so does the unborn child in the belly of the woman.
So the coma patients, so oftentimes people will bring up this potential of life, and they'll make an ontological error where they'll say the potential of life, therefore we should protect it, where they're trying to instantiate all of the concepts that go along, or all of the properties of life, they try to give to the potential of life. But that doesn't really work. We can talk about two different things. We can talk about life, and we can talk about the potential of life, but the potential of life is not life. There is no other category where we would treat the potential of something as something else. The reason why we would protect a coma patient isn't because they have the potential of being alive, it's because they already were alive and they asserted some, hopefully, ability to stay alive, right? If you go into the hospital, unless you filled out a do not resuscitate, a DNR, people assume you probably want to be kept alive. So I reject the idea that because there's a potential of life, it ought to be granted the same ontological properties as a life itself, because I don't think anybody else treats any other category that way.
No, okay. Potential of life is not the phrase I should use. It's the potential of consciousness. The baby is still, the fetus is still alive, even if it's not capable of thinking and dreaming and planning its future. So
the potential of future consciousness developing is true, but there's not one yet. Nothing exists yet to assert itself. There's nothing to regard.
Yes, but there is it's an inevitable part of the development process.
Yeah, sure, but again,
if the pregnancy is healthy and viable and there are no complications, this clump of cells, to use that popular phrase, will eventually develop into a baby that is able to cogitate.
And it is inevitable that if I drop a seed on the ground, a tree will grow, but the seed is not a tree. And my hand holding the seed is not a tree. The potential or the future development of something is not the same thing as the stages preceding it. So it is true that oftentimes, left to their own devices, a pregnancy will grow into something that will have a conscious experience. But that conscious experience is not there yet, and you cannot treat the development of something in the future as the thing that exists now. They're two fundamentally different things.
Potentially, but the seed itself, I agree, the seed is not the tree, but the seed is tissue, whereas the sapling, or with the root system and everything, is the organism in its earliest form. So while you might not call the seed with the roots and everything else a tree yet, you would acknowledge that as long as nobody sabotages the growth of the sapling, the tree is inevitable at that point.
Absolutely, but there's a lot of statements that are being thrown in now that are, I'm not going to obfuscate, makes it sound really bad faith. I don't mean that, but it's clouding the argument, and I don't think they matter. So the seed is tissue, the seed is an organism. A corpse has a lot of tissue. A corpse arguably has more biologically going on than a 7-month-old fetus, which I would say has a bigger right to life than a decomposing corpse, right? But so the presence of tissue, the presence of organs, the development or whatever of some biological system isn't sufficient to say that something is alive, right? It might be one necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. It seems like in order to get that sufficient to be protected as life, we need to have that conscious experience, something that exists, that's asserting itself to exist, and that doesn't exist in fetuses until around 20 to 24 weeks.
Okay, well, in response to that point, I would suggest that sufficiency is a matter of personal taste. That you obviously you've drawn the line with the development of consciousness. I can respect that, as long as it's consistently applied, and obviously we'd have to talk and hash that out. The problem is that, as I said in the beginning, I'm not so much pro-life as anti-choice. I do not like the idea of people deciding whether a thing should live or die based on economic or social circumstances over which it has no control. The thing I always bear in mind with this is that the child didn't ask to be conceived. It's growing in the belly. It's entirely at the mercy of external forces that, as you pointed out, in the first few weeks of its existence, it's completely unaware of. The idea that human agencies should be able to decide whether, thumbs up or thumbs down, whether this creature should die or not, opens the door to all manner of horrors, and for this, and I don't want to take it too far off the path. One of the reasons I oppose the death penalty is precisely this reason. I'm not comfortable with state agencies having the right to decide whether this person deserves to live or die. There's one of the big reasons, because I should come clean on this. I used to be a teacher. And part of my high school teacher, part of my teacher training was I was taken on what we call an SEN school, special educational needs. I imagine you must have an equivalent in the United States. And the deputy head teacher.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, the deputy head teacher, what you would call a vice principal, was taking me on a tour of the building. And he was showing me the work that the kids were doing. And these are kids with severe learning difficulties, severe disabilities. They're learning to tie their shoelaces and make a hot drink. It's very basic life skills. And he was talking about the nature of the population. And he said, yeah, we've got kids with low functioning autism. We've got kids with, horrendous malformations. But we don't get many kids with, and of course, we don't get many kids with Down syndrome anymore. And I went, oh, okay, and why is that? And he goes, because there are two reasons. One, mainstream tools are better at integrating them, which is a good thing, that's positive. But the other reason is the parents just abort them. And I went, oh, okay. And that issue, that answer haunted me as he took me around the rest of the school. And the reason it haunted me for a good 15, 20 minutes, I had to solve it, is that was a eugenics argument. The people had decided that because their child had Down syndrome, it was unworthy of life. It was unworthy of existence, whereas I would argue that it falls upon a society, a culture, as Tree was alluding to, as was mentioning in her opening statements. We ought to provide more resources for people who, through no fault of their own, have difficulties and complications.
Okay, so
that's my position.
Okay, so if possible, it would be nice to stick to one of these at a time. So every single thing here is just it's a non sequitur or not relevant to the argument. So initially you said that anti-choice, whether things should live or die based on economic or social circumstances, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about if there is a thing to be protected that is being killed. Because we can all agree that if it's not a thing worth protecting, it doesn't matter if it's being removed.
So you can see this is good, getting away from, are we going to argue that killing or not killing should be determined based on the economic conditions that life may go into? No. What we're saying is it killing in the sense that it is violating the rights of a being that is worthy of its own individual rights? And so him pulling it back to that is very important and crucial.
For economic or social circumstances. The same way that I might remove a tumor from my neck, I might abort or I might cause a miscarriage or abort a fetus because it doesn't serve whatever purpose. So we're not talking about killing a child based on economic or social circumstances. We're talking about whether or not a life exists that ought to be protected. You make this statement too, like the child didn't ask to be conceived. That would be like me making the statement, how do you feel about something 5 years after your death? You can't. You have no feelings. There is no person or entity there to have a feeling. A child doesn't ask to be conceived because the thing that is conceived does not exist to assert its preference. It doesn't exist to assert any point of view. So yeah, it doesn't ask to be conceived, but that's as nonsense a statement as talking about the preference of somebody that's already dead. There's nothing there to speak of. For the first few weeks of its existence, we talk about something being completely unaware. That's my argument. There is no awareness. There's not even a conscious experience there, henceforth nothing to protect. And then when we say open the door to all manner of horrors, that's up to interpretation. I mean, given my subjective view of this, if we say that my interpretation of everything is correct, I would say that the manner of horrors it's being open to is forcing women to be incubators for things that don't even have conscious experiences yet. I would say that's a potential manner of horror. If you can see a potential horror that might logically flow from any of my stated positions, I'd be interested to hear them. I don't think there are any. I think I'm pretty consistent. That's why I started how do we define death, and then I walk that back to how do we define life. I don't think I'm making any concessions about how we treat living people based on my views of abortions, whereas you necessarily are making the concession that a woman must be forced to do something with her body against her will to incubate something, which I would argue is a much bigger concession than what I would ask for. You talk about opposition to the death penalty, not relevant. You can support the death penalty and support or be against abortion. One is talking about whether or not a life is in existence yet.
Wait, Doug said we do the death penalty in many states because not only is the crime heinous, but the cost of an inmate is about $45,000 a year. A life sentence, it makes a difference. Are you saying you're pro death penalty? Let's see. There's really interesting research on this. Yeah. So it's actually more expensive to give someone the death penalty. Studies consistently find the death penalty is more expensive than alternative punishments. The death penalty is a moral issue for some and a policy issue for others. However, it is also a government program with related costs and possible benefits. The death penalty is so expensive because of legal costs, pretrial costs, jury selection trial. Yeah, so part of it is the actual killing process with the drugs you have to get and all that is expensive, but also you have to get an extra layer of appeals if you're going to be killed by the state, which end up costing the state a lot. So it's actually cheaper to keep someone alive than give them the death penalty.
And the other is talking about the appropriate punishment for a moral agent that is making a choice that we all agree is immoral. One of those punishments could very easily be death. That's fine. If you're a moral agent and you're making a choice between...
my stance on the death penalty is I'm against it. Oh, sorry, my new screen thing blocked. I just noticed it was blocking some of the words, but I think you got the point. Well, okay, so for me, out of principle, I don't think we should be killing people judiciously, if that makes sense. Obviously, in a situation where criminals shooting at the police and they shoot back, like, yes, the state can kill people, but I don't think that the death penalty should be in place, okay, morally. But when people make arguments like, but then you're wasting money, but then blah, blah, blah. No, it's actually cheaper. And also we've gotten death penalty cases wrong. We've killed the wrong person in a death penalty. So for that reason as well, I am saying I'm pro death penalty if the people of the state want it. Bingo, trial costs. We just need to lessen the appeals process. No, Doug, that is vile. You want to lessen the appeals process before someone gets killed by the state? Okay, look at this. Since 1973, at least 189 people have been wrongly convicted and sentenced to the death penalty. Luckily, probably because of the appeals process, I don't think all of them were actually killed, but they were at least put on death row. We could look into this later, but let's see. Yeah, because some of them were exonerated. I would have to put more thought into this if we were going to discuss, but there are countless cases where people are wrongfully convicted of and then sentenced to the death penalty. So you would be making it more likely that they actually go through with getting killed if you lessen the appeals process just for money. Really?
Between one thing or another, part of that necessarily entails consequences to your actions. If you can make decisions, then you are ready to deal with the consequences, et cetera, et cetera. And then you talk about, a lot of people bring up eugenics arguments all the time. I don't believe people are against eugenics, and I don't think that eugenics is in and of itself necessarily a bad thing. For instance, everybody will say that they're against eugenics, but then if you ask, why ought we oppose incestual relationships? One of the first answers that comes out of everybody's mouth is, well, you can make kids that have like really fucked up bodies, you know, they might have Down syndrome. It's like, okay, well, that argument against incest is an argument in favor of eugenics. When you tell a woman, hey, it's not really the best idea to get pregnant after age 35 because the rates of Down syndrome start to increase dramatically, that's a eugenics argument. Women opting to have children earlier in life because they can have healthier pregnancies and have healthier children is kind of eugenics argument. So I think that there are certain types of eugenics that are probably very bad. So not having black babies or not having babies with brown eyes, that's probably not good. But other types of quote unquote eugenics where we're checking for fetal health, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. So to circle all the way back, I still haven't heard a single good opposing viewpoint for why we shouldn't value the beginning of life when the conscious experience starts rather than when just the formation of some cells begins. I haven't heard any contraindication of that yet.
I think I can jump in and maybe help because I see where you're coming from, Destiny, and what you're trying to say. And I want to know, are you aware of the fact that scientists generally have trouble understanding what consciousness even is, and that we don't necessarily know for sure that babies, let's say at 16 weeks of gestation, do not have some kind of conscious experience? An example of this would be if I take a high dose of DMT and I'm seeing machine elves and I'm hallucinating all kinds of fun, crazy stuff, I'm having a conscious experience. But what does that mean, and where does the value of that come in? So I think to cite consciousness is somewhat arbitrary. Could you maybe give us a better definition of when you think consciousness starts, why you've chosen that as the marker, why that's the bar that you've chosen?
So I said at the very beginning of this debate, the reason why I chose, I don't believe that consciousness is arbitrary. I think for the purpose of a debate, maybe somebody could wheel that line out, but when we step into the real world, it is very clearly the line at which we draw between alive and dead when it comes to people in hospitals. This is not an assertion of philosophy. It's not a game that a neuroscientist might play, and it's not just in the domain of internet debate. It is a choice that is made every single day in hospitals all across the world throughout all the history of time, throughout all the cultures of society, for when a person is dead or alive. When you no longer can wake up again and be a conscious person, you're considered dead. So
if you knock me out, if you hit me in the head and knock me out and I'm unconscious and nobody's sure if I'm going to wake up again, it would then be ethical to kill me?
Well, if you're never going to wake up again, then...
How do we know if I'm never? Never is a very metaphysical, concept. How would you know if I'm never going to wake up again?
So let me understand. Do you think that these...
One thing in these conversations I think it's okay to admit is it's confusing and some of the arguments are confusing, obviously, at a fundamental level, but abstractly, philosophically, we have to make some confusing decisions in a society. Like, when do you allow someone to be, you pulled the plug on someone in a coma and stuff like that? We make difficult decisions about values of life and all that type of stuff, and it's okay to admit that and admit that this is a difficult discussion, especially when you get into the finite aspects of it.
These determinations are never made.
I think that they're made, but I do think that they're arbitrary. For example, when you said we generally pull the plug on people if we think they're not going to wake up, that's not something that I would necessarily do. And that gets into a whole nother debate over whether you think that life extension is a good idea or how far we should take that.
What I'm saying is
your argument is resting on the fact that if somebody is unconscious and we don't think they can have a conscious experience in the future, it's ethical.
Doug, you're right about how horrible our prisons are in many places, for sure.
To let them die. And as Kendon said, we know that babies will have, like, the vast majority of them will have conscious experiences if we don't kill them first. So I'm trying to...
Yeah, can you tell me what you mean when you say arbitrary? I need to understand what you mean when you say arbitrary.
I mean, you're kind of basing it on a preference or something that's not very objective, or something that you don't have a good epistemology for, something you don't have a good logical reason for.
So when we talk about the beginning of life, we're almost necessarily in some normative category because we're trying to create a definition. We're not going to find this epistemically, like scientifically, right? So necessarily it's going to be somewhat arbitrary, of course, but any definition that you give is going to be just as arbitrary.
It sounds like Doug in the chat is saying that he's not necessarily pro death penalty, but he's not anti either. He just thinks that the people should decide in any given state.
As any definition that I give, right? Whether or not we ought to value something as living, that is necessarily a normative position, right? You can't think of any, even if you tell me life begins at 5 seconds past conception or at the moment of conception, I'm going to ask you, why do you value it at that point? And that's when the normativity comes in. You're going to have to justify it. So saying that
that's actually why I would reject the idea of using normative ethics, because depending on, the time and the ethos that you are raised in will determine what the normative ethics of the time are. So I don't think that we can use just normative ethics. Kind of infers like a consensus, right?
Well, no, hold on. Can you give me an example? Agree. Can you give me an example? Just a very simple, quick statement. What is an example of something about when life begins that you believe is devoid of normativity?
What do you mean? Something
like what's a statement of like this is when life begins that you think isn't a normative statement?
I think we know when life begins, but you're not hinging your argument on that. You're hinging it on when consciousness begins, and I'm asking you to tell me how we establish when consciousness begins.
Hold on. So all of us are trying to figure out like when human life, when the thing is like a human worth protecting. We're all trying to figure that out. So I'm asking you, what's an example of a statement that you believe is not normative, isn't a moral statement? What's an example of that? Because they're all going to be normative statements.
So my moral statement, which is that if it's a human being and you intervene to kill it, even if it's in the earliest fetal stages, that would be unethical, because if you did not intervene, it would probably grow and more than likely grow and have a conscious experience and be born. You would probably say that that's not normative, right?
Well, the part that I would say is normative is when you're saying that like this is a human being, like at the very beginning of this moment of conception. When I say normativity or normative statement, that's another word for like a moral statement. I would say that statement has some level of subjectivity to it. We can't go into the world and discover like what is a human, when do humans exist, right? These are statements that as humans we decide these things. There's not like an answer key.
I think we can definitely determine that something's human. Your argument is that it doesn't matter if it's human, it matters if it's conscious, right?
Okay, let me try this one more time. What I'm saying is that you can't say that my definition is arbitrary when we're talking about like when do we begin to protect a life as like a thing that is worth protecting, because every single statement is going to be somewhat arbitrary by your...
CA said, I say pull the plug if I don't respond within 36 hours. 36 and 2 minutes, I'm out.
Definition of arbitrary. All of them are arbitrary. There isn't like this is objectively correct. They're all arbitrary.
No, I'm speaking specifically to your argument of when consciousness begins.
Sure, that's fine. I'm just saying that they're all arbitrary. So that's not. I don't think that's a good like contention of the argument. But I'm sorry. Moving past that one real quick. So you're telling me, if you want to point to the idea that it's hard to draw some distinction between A and B, like when is a person going to have a conscious experience again, like in the coma versus never, and you're going to try to argue that because you can't give me the exact answer for this, there's a specific name for this logical fallacy, but I can't think of it. But basically, like if you have two different categories and there's a lot of overlap or blur, and it's hard to distinguish one from the other, you can... What? Oh, I thought I heard him say it. Sorry. But yeah, if it's hard to distinguish between A and B, or there's a blurry line in the middle, therefore there's no difference between the two. That doesn't logically follow. For instance, if I point out.
Let me clarify then.
Sure.
Let me clarify, because it sounds like we're getting off into weeds.
Wait,
Can
hold
you
on, wait,
tell
let me
me-
finish real quick. We're not getting into
Sure.
weeds. I don't like that you said that. Okay, so let me just finish this quick example, okay? You're trying to say like, oh, well, he could be conscious, he could not be conscious. If I were to show you a person and I were to stick a mini micro bomb in their brain and blow it up and they had no brain left, but they were still like a person looking at you, okay? But their brain was exploded. And then I give you another person who fell asleep and I say, which one is more likely to become conscious again? You're always going to point to the sleeping person. So it might be hard to tell the difference between one or the other in a lot of narrow edge cases, but you can't use that to say like, well, we have no idea, because clearly we make these judgments all the
Okay,
time about
great.
who will become conscious and who won't be. Yeah.
Perfect. That's perfect. So tell me
Okay.
when consciousness begins.
So it's hard to know exactly when, but it seems to be the case that conscious is an emergent property from several structures in the brain that start to exist and communicate with each other at around 20 to 24 weeks during gestation in the brain of the fetus.
So we don't know.
Well, we don't know exactly, but
So what I'm saying is there's no ethical line you could draw where you could say this is conscious now and it's not conscious now, and that's where we can draw the line of where we can abort something.
When you tell me that I
Abort a
don't know exactly when it is, what you could do if you wanted to attack my argument is say, well, you need to broaden your range a bit. Since you don't know exactly, 20 to 24 weeks is not good. You should say 16 to 28. If you want to do something like that, then you could do that. But you can't say, because I can't give you an exact argument, that I'm incapable of making that distinction.
Larry, if I don't respond in 5 minutes, yikes, you might just have been knocked out. You'll wake up fine.
Very, very, very quickly. Loki makes a wager with some goblins. Eventually he loses, and what he'd wagered was his head. They take him back to the prison. They go to chop his head off. So they lay him over the thing. They pull his hair up, and then they set an axe across the back of his neck, and he says, you can chop my head off, but you cannot take an
My niece eats her toes? Well, that's unfortunate. Gotta cut that habit out quick.
inch of my neck. You can't take any of it, but you can take my head, but not any of my neck. And they move the axe back and forth, and they're not entirely sure where does the neck end and the head begin, and he ends up walking. It's called Loki's paradox, I think. Just because I can't tell you exactly where one begins and one ends doesn't mean I can say, look, there is no such thing as heads or necks, because it's hard to tell when it starts. It doesn't work that way.
So what I would say to that is that if you, to hinge your entire ethical argument on consciousness and when consciousness begins, when we cannot even quantify what a valuable conscious experience is. If I'm dreaming.
See, I said not eat, but a hard chew. Yeah, well, I assumed that your niece wasn't taking off a chunk of their toe.
Am I conscious? Am I not? If I'm DMT tripping, am I conscious? Am I not? If I'm 18 weeks gestation versus 24 weeks gestation, am I conscious or am I not? I would say that it makes much more sense logically to say we're not going to intervene and kill something before it can have a conscious experience, because that's our preference, because it would be either more convenient for us, it would be less hardships for us, because we foresee that the child might not have a good future.
I'm not making any of those arguments. I'm not making any of those arguments.
You're
So
not
also,
making those arguments,
to be
but
clear,
I'm
also
saying-
every argument you're making can be very easily addressed. When you take DMT or when you're dreaming, even if you were to temporarily completely cease your conscious experience, you already existed and you already asserted something. If Rachel says, I'm going to do this, but don't let me die, and then you disappear from
They do exist.
No,
You're just
we're not
saying that
talking. We're not
because they're
talking about.
conscious yet.
No, we're not
You're
talking.
saying that if it's
no,
not
no.
conscious yet, it doesn't matter if it
No
already
one here is
exists.
denying
And
that
I'm
fetuses
saying
exist.
That if you stop it from
No.
having the conscious experience, then it can't have it.
No one is saying whether or not fetuses exist. We all agree that they exist. The question is,
Yes.
has there been a conscious experience yet to assert itself or any preferences? For Rachel, for you, before you take
How
DMT...
does a 20-week gestation in fetus assert itself?
Because
or
it's
have
having a
conscious
conscious experience. There's something
How do you
there.
know that?
Because
You
the
don't know
necessary...
that.
I don't know 100%.
Scientists told you?
No, you don't know 100%.
probably?
Technically, if you want to get ultra philosophical about it, there's something called a philosophical zombie. I don't even know if you're having a conscious experience. That's not an insult, but we don't technically know if anybody is,
How
right?
do you know you're not just a brain in a vat? How
Sure.
do I know
So,
I'm right?
but
How do any
but
of
we
us
can
know?
we can
So
we
I'm
can
saying this
we
is
can
a
say
very
this.
silly place
It's not
to base an ethical
Hold
argument
on.
off of,
It's
in
not,
my opinion.
It's not silly. Only in debate terms is it silly in the middle of a debate. But if you step into the real world, these are the decisions that we make in hospitals every single day across
Destiny,
all of
why
time
do
and
you
across all of
debate?
space.
If you think that debate is silly and there's this delineation between the real world and philosophy and that we can't use logical argumentation to determine.
The reason I'm not intervening much right now is because all the stuff that like I would want to say, Destiny's saying, so this is just like good to absorb. Because I think he's laying out the the issue, the core issue with a lot of the pro-life arguments.
These things because in the real world we just all agree, or in the real world these are all fallacies. It's a logical fallacy to say, well, in the real world it works differently.
No, I'm not. What I'm trying
So
to
what's
do is
the
I'm
point
trying.
of debating
No,
then?
I'm not trying to hand wave debate. What I'm trying to do is to take, because if I'm in the middle of making an argument, what sometimes I'll take a step back and I'll say, have I committed myself to a position that actually seems highly incongruent with a macro picture? So when we're in the midst of an argument and we start saying things like, well, really, we don't have any idea if any conscious experience exists. We don't know anything about it. Well, let's take a step back on a macro scale. Do we really believe that? Clearly, we don't believe that. If we look at how we behave in the real world, if we look at how we behave in hospitals, where we're deciding when to kill people or when not to kill people, clearly we have some concept of conscious experiences. When we look at how we treat people with medicine, when we look at how we analyze structures of the brain, when we look at where like death comes from, right? It's not when you cut off your arm. It's not when you lose a kidney. It's when your brain stops to function. It seems like we have some conception of where conscious experience comes from. So if we go back then to the debate and we...
It's so true. Ugh. I think framing it from this perspective is pretty good too. Like setting aside the biological thing, we really do base if a life is a life based on the conscious experience thing, because like he was describing, if you chop off your leg, are you dead? No. You could die, but I'm saying it really is once you completely cease to have any brain activity or the ability to. I don't know. That's really an interesting perspective.
We look at the microscopic arguments we're making to say things like, well, we don't know anything about conscious experience. Seems a little bit, it seems like not the best faith of an argument. It seems like a debate argument because that's not true. All of us have some concept of like how consciousness works and how we decide when people are dead.
Yeah, I don't want to soak up the whole entire debate with you and I going back and forth on epistemology and philosophy and logical argumentation. So we'll just kind of leave that there for right now. I think we've kind of exhausted that, and we'll let the other two panelists say some things.
Rachel and Kendon, are you both life absolutists?
You'd have to define the phrase.
Can you define that? Yeah.
Meaning that everybody should live no matter what. Under no circumstances, no one should die under any circumstances. Actually, I'll even say under no circumstances should anyone be killed.
I would not be a life absolutist.
There are too many variables there.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the case of self-defense, I know there are people like Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, who refuse to defend themselves even if someone comes at them with a knife. I'm not one of those people. Because in that situation, for example, in the case of self-defense, if there's a chance that one of you is going to...
Destiny's backdrop is so interesting. There's just like a girl. What the heck? It's probably from something I'm not aware of. Game related.
Go down. It's almost an animal reflex to defend yourself.
Just so y'all know, I have played like a shockingly low amount of games, and I feel left out sometimes around conversations about them.
So if you believe that if what you mean by life absolutist is someone who cannot think of a situation in which killing of another human being would ever be permissible, then no, I'm not one of those people.
Okay.
There must be exceptions to. I hate absolute rules. There must be an exception to an absolute rule. If you see what I mean. If that's not an absurd thing to say. But there are certain decisions.
Rachel, can you kill the spirit?
No.
Oh yeah, I've also never watched anime.
So what's the problem with abortion as a Christian?
Well, again, I don't know if I want to get into a religious framework because that's not really...
I will say from her perspective, like she said up front, I'm not making a religious argument about this. But then she keeps trying to bring it back to that. But it's like, but she's not arguing from a religious perspective, which I think you have to respect if someone's willing to do that. Does he not have timestamps? No? Okay. Because I know a lot of this is Q&A, so I'm curious when the actual debate ends.
In honor of the panel, I don't want to sit here and talk about like theological concepts because everyone else here besides me is secular. So I don't think it's actually proper to get into God, because then we would have to define who God is, What God? Which God?
I'll take your definition of God in the Bible. Is that fair? I mean, whatever God you want to say,
No,
I'll stand by
because
it.
people
the
interpret
trouble is,
the Bible differently, even Christians.
Yeah, yeah, I was going to say as well that because it would put I would argue that not that Rachel needs me to defend her, but it would put her on the spot because of course any religious argument she makes in defence of the pro-life position can be easily dismissed with because I'm not religious, so it doesn't matter.
True,
you know,
true,
and that kind of invalidates the position already.
That's true for you, Kendon. But when I'm talking to Rachel, you know, I want to see what is the root cause of why she really is against abortion, because, you know, if you're saying killing, then I would object to saying, well, you can't kill the spirit. And that's why I asked her.
I'm not making a religious argument. I'm making an ethical argument.
Could spirit be spiritual too? I mean, does it really have to be religious?
Yes, but you're forming a straw man because I'm not making that argument. That's not the argument I'm making. I'm
asking a question. I didn't even frame nothing. I asked you a question. I asked you,
you could ask me what my favorite color is or what my favorite dessert is, but we're here to debate the topic, and that's not my argument.
You accuse me of straw manning you, and I'm saying, no, I did not. You're lying on me again. I asked you a question. I asked Yeah, you did. I asked you.
Everything I say that you don't like is lying.
No, I mean, no. Did I not? Yes or no? Did I not ask you, can you kill the spirit? Did I not ask you that?
Yeah, and I said no.
So how was that straw manning you?
Because then you went in to say, like, well, if God does this, tell me why God says we can't have abortions. And
I didn't say that. I did not say that.
Okay, I answered your question. I answered your question.
All right.
So are you going to actually make an argument?
I was about to make an argument until you basically interrupted me by saying that and falsely accusing me lying, saying that I straw manned you, and I just showed you I didn't. Okay, so the reason my argument is like,
good point, Doug. She's technically not making a religious argument, but she also is sitting in a literal cathedral, like in a religious little room there. That's funny.
I don't believe you can kill anything. Okay. And by the way, I'm agnostic. I'm not religious. So, and I know Christians who also, everybody on several faiths believe that you can't kill energy. So I wanted to know, like, what's the big deal? I totally get the argument of conscious, not conscious, sentient, I get that. Okay. I just wanted to get a grasp on what is the root problem to terminating an abortion, kill the baby, whatever you want to name it.
So did you just tell me that because you can't kill energy?
I didn't tell you anything but what I just said.
You just said, I don't believe you can
So y'all can see, Destiny's arguments were great, and then his partner just kind of goes off the rails and doesn't really help at all in being convincing.
Energy.
Right.
And did you say that, would you agree then that you can't kill the spirit, as you put it?
Well, I'm not religious, but that's why I'm asking. But I'll go ahead and say, I'm not asking, but I'll just say, sure, you can't kill the spirit. I'll go ahead.
So then by that extension, I'm going to try again to help you understand the logical extensions of the arguments you make, which is then it's no problem if I kill you right now. Because I can't kill your spirit, I can't kill your energy. What's the big deal? You're going to reincarnate. You're going to still exist in some form. It's just
it's annoying whenever the person I disagree with is making the better arguments. It's like she's debating better right now because the point about the energy thing is stupid. Get back to the core of what we need to be talking about.
Dead end. It's a total non sequitur. It's not even worth considering when we're trying to have an argument here.
Well, killing me right now is against the law, and nice try. You wouldn't even have that opportunity before I get you first. And
I don't know about that. I'm a firearms instructor, and I teach defense. Yeah.
This is so stupid. Ugh. No. This is not at all what we're talking about. You can't say the reason you can't kill me is because it's against the law when you're debating if something should be against the law about abortion. Like, what are we talking about? And then making it about like, oh, but you couldn't kill me because I'll, kill you first is like, what the heck? We're falling off the rails here.
don't know nothing.
Well, you're
about
trying to get all bad on me, so I just
No,
thought I
I'm
would
just
return
saying.
the
Do you
favor
know
a
my?
little
Do
bit.
you know my firearm experience? Okay.
Do you know
so-
mine?
No, you just. I mean, you just
I bet you
assume
don't.
that you can get me.
But you're trying to. This, ma'am. I'm with all
Okay,
due
so but
respect.
anyway, let me
I
get back
think
on
you're-
What? No, if you say hypothetically, your logic leads to the you know, presumed belief that I would be able to kill you, and then your response to that isn't to say no, my logic doesn't lead to that. It's to say, well, you wouldn't be able to kill me. No, that's not what.
your head here,
There-
and you don't
there
understand how to make a logical
You just tried to
argument
do a
without
dick
walking
measuring
into a giant
contest with me, and I
fallacy.
just took you on it.
No,
Okay, so
it's-
here's
you
my
keep
thing. So let
walking
me
straight
go ahead
into
and
giant
say what I gotta say.
fallacies.
So
Destiny, I'm sorry that this person is.
I'm enjoying this. I'm having fun.
This
What do you mean by
person?
this person? Uh-oh.
I mean, so you want to
Tree.
dehumanize me now?
No.
How white is
No, stop, guys. This is okay. When people get onto you for saying like those people or this person, it's like it's just a gender neutral way to say like that woman or that man, you know, this person. I don't know. That's funny.
Okay, I
I'm
can play
saying
that
that
game
you
too, okay?
do not understand the basic framework of logical argumentation. You'll take a position that can be extrapolated to something
you always
absurd, and you don't
reframe
even understand
arguments when
you're
you're
doing that.
losing.
No,
That's what that is. You
I'm
did it
not
with,
reframing
you did it with
anything.
me, and you did it with
I am
Destiny.
following the logic of your position, ma'am.
No,
That's
you're
what I'm
not. No,
doing.
you're not. Stop lying again. So, okay, here's my. I want to get back to the argument on what I said in my opening statement. To try to ban abortion is like a slippery slope. Do y'all want to go to now banning Plan B next? When will it stop? I mean, right now abortion is legal.
What is Plan B?
Plan B is a pill if you have sex and if the condom broke or it was unprotected or if you raped or stuff like that, and you believe that you're about to get pregnant, you take this pill. It's called Plan B pill that will prevent a fertilized egg from attaching to the walls of a uterus. So in other words, that is, if you really want to be technical, that is a way of aborting a child because you're preventing a fertilized egg from attaching to the uterus, therefore being discharged through the cervix and out of the vagina and dying out.
The only nuance I would draw there is that if you're still talking about tissue, then it doesn't vex me too much. I'm also rather soft on the topic. Probably I shouldn't use this the way I'm going to phrase this poorly, but in cases of rape, I understand.
I love how they all have nice setups where you can, you know, see them well, and then he just looks like he's on an iPhone or something, like it's upright.
Because it's not just a physical but also a psychic trauma, and I'm also a coward. I couldn't look a rape victim in the eye and say, "Well, tough." I couldn't do that.
Right.
Now,
So then you. That means you don't believe that the being in there is the same as a life worthy of its own individual rights. If you're able to get yourself there, so yes, you agree with us then.
Inconsistency in my argument, then that's fair enough.
No,
and people
that's
can take
fair.
it to pieces if they want to.
No.
But because I couldn't, so if let's make this personal to Tree, right? I'm going to make this personal to you, right? If you told me that you were pregnant and you were pregnant through rape, I couldn't say, well, sorry, you got to bear the child if you're a rapist. Because I know I can't do that. I don't have the stones to do that. When it comes to that particular sort
But that's what your logic leads to. If you're saying that at conception there's a, you know, it creates instantly there a life worthy of its own individual rights, then yes, it doesn't matter how it was created. That's what your logic leads to.
scenario, I tend to be rather soft. I'm still killing a child. You know, I'd still maintain that position. Also, when it comes to medical abortions, medically necessary abortions like ectopic pregnancies, that's a non-issue for me because obviously in that scenario the baby dies either way. My fundamental, sort of abortion argument, anti-abortion argument, is that you could draw the line at consciousness, but we don't even know if consciousness exists. You could talk about, quality of life when it's born, but who's to say whether someone's quality of life, who sets up the scale? There are certain decisions that I don't believe human agencies should make, and one of them is whether an entire human timeline, because that's ultimately what we're talking about here, an entire human timeline should be snuffed out, before it's emerged from the uterus. That's my fundamental pro-life position or anti-choice position. Yeah, so I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. I've just dropped that there. You can pick it up and do what you like with it.
Well, okay. Well, one last thing. Like I said in my opening arguments, why go for banning? Like I said, abortion is not completely banned throughout the entire country. I also, by the way, I saw your debate. You did very well, and I wanted to address something in reference to this. You didn't say this; it was said to you about back alley abortions. That's not going to be a thing. Okay, we have too many programs. We have too many foundations that will actually pay for women, no matter what state they're in, whether abortion is abolished completely or if it's a heartbeat bill. They will pay for that woman to get a ticket to a pro-abortion state to have that abortion, and they will provide her medical needs as well as her room service and her travel fees. So this whole argument of we're going back to the coat hangers, that's not a thing. So I just want to let you know. Yeah. With that being said,
I'm sure that's true. No, I said I'm sure that's true. Yes, when I was
it is true.
About my debate with Stardust,
even Canada has stated that they will pay for abortions. You have Amazon. You have there's so many corporations out there that specifically stated that they will pay for a woman's abortion.
But can I pick up on that, Tree? Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah. The reason why in my opinion, the reasons why these big companies, well, there are two reasons why these big companies...
Again, this just seems to be taking it away from the core of what we disagree on.
...are prepared to sponsor their employees to fly to, California.
They don't want to pay for
and taking it away from anything that would convince a pro-life person.
Maternity leave.
They don't want to pay for the maternity leave. They don't want to lose... They don't. Yeah. Now, if we're talking about the ethics of abortion... I would argue that that's a complete abnegation of the topic, because what you're doing is what these companies are doing is saying, well, we could sponsor young mothers and make sure they've got diapers and formula and baby grows and things like that, or we could just pay this bitch to kill her unborn kid. That's the cheaper option, and as a corporate entity, that's the decision we're going to make. And that is so callous and cold and calculating.
You can
it's
look
actually
at history
revolting.
and see
my God, I am still listening to Kendon, and you are butting in Rachel as always. Kendon, can you please finish your argument? I was enjoying you thoroughly before you was rudely interrupted by her. Sorry,
well, no,
please pick up what you were saying.
But I was going to say, well, Rachel, I'm sure Rachel was.
You haven't really been talking that much, so I would like to hear more of your voice than her voice, if you don't mind. But go ahead.
Well, my argument is that the only reason these big companies are paying women to fly to, I don't know, Honolulu or wherever they're going to have these clinics to have these procedures is because it's the cheaper option. And if you remember when my opening arguments, I said most of the arguments for abortion are purely socioeconomic. Like someone of your background, Tree, born in hardship, raised by abusive parents or whatever, or callous people. Those are problems we can address. But my argument is that abortion is used as a kind of ejection button. It's like, or the emergency chute or whatever. It's like, right, well, we'll ignore all the social problems that affect. And I realise that you live in a different country. I don't know where in America you are, but
I'm in Georgia.
Oh, you're in Georgia, right? Well, I'm one of the few British people I know who's been to the south side of Chicago, and I've seen areas of greater New York City that are a bit run down. And I can imagine that it'd be sorely tempting that if you were pregnant and you lived in those circumstances to go, right, well, I can't raise a kid here because I live in a slum, so I'm going to destroy this child. Whereas my argument is that if you deny that option, that get out clause, it would encourage, hopefully, people to provide all of the welfare reforms that you mentioned in your opening statement, such as...
Do you really think our government would do that, though? Seriously, our government is shit, okay? Let me repeat your argument back to you, so I'm not accusing of not knowing your logic. You're saying that if we if we allow abortion to be illegal, this will force, if not encourage, facilities, including the government, to impose upon good Medicaid, good Medicare, and also good programs to help not rectify, not eliminate child poverty, but relieve it tremendously. Did I understand it correctly? It would encourage them to do something. Okay.
Force is probably the wrong verb.
Okay, now
because
force.
obviously because my thinking is entirely wishful. I recognise that the United States, well, it seems to think that all welfare is communism or something, and it's not very keen on it. A blended system of like capitalist economic forces and social welfare provision. It seems like a difficult marriage, a troubled marriage for the United States. But it certainly would encourage it. It would strengthen the arguments for any kind of welfare provision.
Again, all of this to me is so irrelevant. Whether or not making abortion legal or not legal would change how much welfare people are getting does not affect whether or not we believe that being in there is worthy of its right of individual rights, or if it's, under the umbrella of the rights of the mother, or, to be determined by the mother. It's just like, ugh. That's why abortion debates kill me, because they get into all these random rabbit holes that don't have anything to do. I mean, they have to do with, but they're like step 10 questions. We got to get step 1. Do we even agree about the basics of this?
Actually works or not is something that, you're all American, aren't you? You tell me.
Hey, Andrew.
Whether it actually works or you live there, I'm merely spitballing. But my argument would be is that there is simply no incentive. If it's cheaper to just exterminate human beings before they're born, that's the option everyone's going to go for. And anything like, school sure starts or food stamps or whatever, that stuff will never improve because there's no incentive to improve it. Does that make any kind of sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the only thing I was going to add to what Kendon
what the heck is he putting on the screen?
Kendon was saying is that corporations have an even bigger incentive, which is not just the short-term cost, but the longer-term cost.
What
we have data from a
heck? Why does he have that on the
countries
screen?
around the world that shows that where you legalize abortion, female participation in the workforce goes up exponentially, like by a large margin. I think it's something like it went up like 10 to 12 times in countries where they made abortion legal. So of course corporations have a very vested long-term interest in providing abortions.
No, Andrew, we're watching a debate that happened previously.
To females that they want to have in the workforce.
No, that was definitely not me. That was on all of this is Destiny's screen. I'm just overlaid on top of it. So the chat and everything. And so he had put up a photo of some random person shirtless.
That's all I was going to say.
Well, I was going to say, and if I can pick up on that, Rachel, one of you often find that a lot of people who are pro-choice are also anti-capitalist, especially in the United States. They hate the corporatocracy, if that's even a word, runs the United States of America, and obviously lobbies politicians all the time and things like that. By constantly treating this issue as an economic one, a socio-economic one, and ignoring any kind of spiritual or moral, whatever philosophical ramifications, you turn, as Rachel's alluded to, women as well as men, of course, into just cogs in the corporate machine. And the advantage of having a home life and having something is away from the markets, away from the workforce, away from the factory making widgets or whatever, is that it takes power away from them. I would argue. Again, you want to tear that apart, you can do. Yeah. So.
I don't know. I think that when you provide excellent, and I'm speaking from experience. I used to live in Germany for 5 years. The maternity leave is 2 years.
Is it 2? Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh, they take care.
The Germans are doing it properly then. I'm genuinely impressed with that.
Yeah, and it encourages the women to not leave the workforce, but also allow to have a baby. They also Germany also provide them not a nanny, but somebody to come and help, like clean the diapers and Also, oh shoot, sorry about that, my freaking phone. To also clean the diapers and to also help around the house with the mother. So this is something that should be here. So my argument would be, why not have that here in America first, and then start going for the abortion?
Well, timing could well be an issue, I suppose, but you could. Why not? But why not do both at the same time?
I really want Destiny to jump in and start saying stuff, because this conversation has gone completely into the realm of irrelevancy.
I suppose you could argue, why not get rid of abortion and improve your welfare service? But the trouble is, as well, I think because Roe versus Wade in your country was. It was, I don't want to say sneakily done, because it was done in...
Salim, yes, you absolutely can. Lots of people are pro-choice, but then they're personally against abortion. So, like, for them and those around them, they would never want an abortion to happen, but they don't want the government to force people to have that same limit on their decision making.
Public, but it was slipped in. Is that the phrase I want to use? I think this has been a hot bot. This since 1973, Roe versus Wade was put into place, wasn't it? Since the 1970s, Roe versus Wade has been a hot button issue. It's not even about abortion at that point. It's the way it was done. It was the way it was punted upstairs to the Supreme Court. It was passed without grassroots support, really. No popular vote. No consideration of state legislature. It's anti-democratic. It was undemocratic, one could argue. It's anti-federal.
Thank you for the super chat, CA, with a emoji. Hangry Luke has entered the chat. Yeah, I'm hangry. So hangry. Such a weird time to stream. Z King likes hangry Luke. Oh no, I'm shaking my camera. Sorry, guys. Both my legs love to shake. Shaky, shaky, shake. So if you ever just see me jiggling or like the camera jiggling, that's why. I don't know why though. I'm not touching the camera. I guess the tripod gets jiggled from me jiggling my leg on the ground. I don't know.
Because yours is, of course, a federal system, as you know better than I do. And so I think Roe versus Wade has been there like a thorn in the side of constitutional conservative America since the 70s. And that's why they're desperate to get rid of it. Also, a lot of Republicans in your country believe, rather than having a bloated, centralized state welfare system, they believe in local government, they believe in local charity, religious involvement, of course, religious charity. So yeah, they a lot of the people who oppose Roe versus Wade also oppose very welfare provisions that I would actually endorse.
We're going to agree on that one, actually. I'm going to tell you, this is I see the conservatives over here. They're so hypocritical. They don't want to take care of these unplanned pregnancies. They lose their crap when it comes to welfare, and let's not talk about anchor babies. So they sit up here and they hate when women have a bunch of unplanned pregnancies. They always want to do this fatherless home situation, but yesterday they told me, don't you kill your baby, don't you kill your baby, because the Lord said so. I can't stand that, and I don't come from that position at all. I think like, hey, like I want abortion to be available so that we don't have to worry about a bunch of welfare. Okay, I'll be on that hill, but you cannot sit up here and deny financial assistance from the government, which my side bitch about all the time, and then sit up here and encourage the very thing that's going to raise our taxes and cause us to pay the welfare that a lot of people on the right don't want to do. The conservatives don't want to deal with.
Yeah, as I say, I'm not addicted to welfare in the sense that I don't particularly want everybody to be slaves to a welfare state. But I recognise I've had this conversation.
Leslie said you're hungry when you stream at night too. I just think you're hungry a lot. Well, okay. In my defense, first of all, yes, I'm hungry all the time. But in my defense. No, this is not the introduction. This is the debate. I don't think they're too far from when it gets to the Q&A, which we'll cut out during. they usually do like the whole half of its, or a big chunk of its debate. I mean, Q&A. But back to Leslie's thing. It makes it more fun for me to stream whenever I am like thinking about what I'm going to eat afterwards. So when I used to stream late, I would wait for my late night snack, obviously. So then I would get really hungry looking forward to what I was going to eat after stream. Because it's super fun. Like, oh, Doug, thank you so much for the super chat. I'll work all day, I'll like do my job, and then I'll do, then I'll go to the gym, and then I'll do some school, and then I'll prep for the show, and then I'll do the show. So like all that's work. So then it's really fun to know like I get food as my reward at the end of the day. But even when I would do late night streams, I would also put that as an incentive at the end. So, or like, for example, if I want to make sure that I work out late at night. So for a certain amount of time, it didn't work for me to work out during the day. And so I'd work out late at night. And so I would like think of some dessert or a snack or something that I really wanted that day, and then say I have to work out before I can get it. Anyways, so Discord, Luke. Let's see. What am I doing? What about Discord? You want to talk on Discord? Or do you need my Discord username? Let me know what you're saying. Let's see that jiggling and shaking here.
Thanks to James and Stephen Ryan of the YouTube channel Side
ready?
Report. I don't know if he's watching, but I've just promoted his YouTube channel for him. This is where the conversation starts. It's not where it ends. And I think the trouble is, particularly in the American conversation, it's you're either pro-life or pro-choice. And that's it, and then, but there are ramifications for what I am proposing, and what Rachel is ultimately proposing is an increased number of babies in the civilization that we're discussing. So what are you going to do about it?
Yes, Matthew, exactly. My dad was reading a book about how to set good habits, and one of the things they said was to tie in your mind like positive experiences to difficult things that you want to start doing. And so if working out for you is something that you want to get in the habit of doing, but it's obviously not like the most fun thing all the time, then you can say like, after a workout, this is what I'm rewarding myself with. Leslie, you like to daydream about food? Yes, I do. Your fantasies are kind of lame for a youngster, lol. Yep. My only fantasies are food. That's it. No, I have better fantasies, but food is definitely at the front of mine much of the day.
It's no good. It's no good ensuring, forcing women to carry a baby to term and giving birth if mother and baby are going to die in the street because they're sleeping in a cardboard box. There has to be some kind of adjustment. Maybe not a massive one, but there has to be some kind of adjustment. Yeah. So what was I going to put? I had a point and it's gone. I'm going to leave that there, I think, because I'll stop rambling. I'll try and remember what I was coming up with. Does anybody else want to tear apart what I've said? Destiny's been very quiet for a while.
I don't think any of the conversation topics are relevant to anything.
Thank you.
I think that the only thing that matters with abortion is determining when it's a life or not, and that past that point, every conversation topic is meaningless. Because any topic you talk about socioeconomic or any issues, we would never, ever, 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 ever accept killing a 1-year-old child. So if we think that like a fetus is a life, then I don't care like what any other arguments are. You just shouldn't have an abortion. So I usually don't engage with anything past that distinction of when is it worth protecting and when is it not, because I don't think it's relevant. So.
Do I still give dating tips on my Patreon? I will, if y'all want that. I love giving like love advice. Love it. You know what I'd love to do when the show gets a little bigger? Do like call in advice streams, like personal life advice. That would be fun for me. I eat that up.
The only thing I would say is that, you know, life does begin at conception. Even the medical forces would acknowledge this. I don't think consciousness is a particularly good barrier because, of course, there's some debate about whether consciousness even exists. Because the potential of consciousness, like waking up from deep sleep or a coma, exists for most babies. You know, there's very few babies. You know, stillbirths and miscarriages are fortunately rare, and as someone who's dealt, you know, in my private life, you know, I have female friends who have fallen pregnant, who have miscarried, and who have had stillbirths and all sorts of things. It's worth preserving because it's a living.
Does Luke have a significant other? Interesting. I wonder if here, ready? We're gonna do a poll. I'm going to do, is Luke single? Let's see what y'all think. Okay. Am I single or not? I'll leave that out for a while and then we'll circle back and I'll tell you the answer.
Living, it's an organism at that point. It's worth preserving. It's going to become a baby. It's going to become a human being. And I find that all lines that are drawn about, you know, whether it's...
Jared said, I don't think so, but we didn't hear about how the dinner date went last night. So I don't know how much of my personal life I should get in the habit of sharing, but last night was not a date. It was a date with my grandmother and great aunt and mother and father and sister. But do I have a cool hippie uncle? No. Okay, Doug, I wasn't broken up with on stream. We hadn't started dating yet. Like, we had just gone on a few dates. It was just like a, hey, I'm cool, I don't want to continue. And it's like, cool. I think Luke's single because he's too grounded and busy. Oh, Matthew, I saw that you said you think that I have a girlfriend. Unlikely that I would have a girlfriend. Don't overshare, but I love oversharing. All right, we're at 65% yes. Well, y'all are correct. I am quite single and loving every day. Dumped? I swear to God, that is a YouTube classic. What? I don't know what you're saying, Doug. Yeah, it was exactly, Jared. It was an IRL Tinder unmatch. For sure. Yeah, Matthew, I got you. And one of the reasons is, someone pointed out, there's not too much time on my schedule these days to, you know, pursue those endeavors. I feel like you're starting a competition for people to pick a potential date. What does that mean? There's no competition going on here. I am super, super good at pro-life debates. I win them all so far and have changed many people's minds. Do you mean that you are on the pro-life side, or you've convinced pro-life people to be pro-choice? Being single is base. Anyone can fight me on that. I'm joking, but being serious too. I don't know. I think being single's like overstated. I'll put it that way. like, it depends on who you are. For me, I think the best part about life is relationships, whether it be friendships or romantic relationships. So like when people say, oh, I need to not be in a relationship because I need to focus on my career, or this or this or this. To me, good relationships, I love how the I love how the poll went from 60% to 60 or 65% to 60% after I told you the correct answer, but the wrong direction. Like more people voted the wrong way. Here, let me end the poll. To me, a good relationship helps you get through really busy times and stuff like that. I can't handle abortion talk. Like, why does anyone think? Yeah. Salim. Oh my gosh. Matthew says, I agree. Relationships are really all we have, all that matters. Totally. Totally. Oh, and people don't get that. You can't be looking for relationships, they just come. Maybe. I think a lot of times the good ones do just come, yeah. I don't know. I just think like if everyone had the right mindset with relationships, life would be so easy, but people don't. When you're single, you get to bond with friends more, maybe? Yeah, maybe. Luke, I can't imagine you having any trouble finding a date or a partner. You're gorgeous. Thank you so much, Andrew. I don't have a problem finding a partner, but I do have a problem finding the right partner, the correct partner. Andre says relationships are awesome. I totally agree. I put fuel in the fire and now they won't shut up. Wait, who's hitting on me? Matthew? Matthew's not hitting on me. Matthew's just agreeing with my philosophical belief about relationships. Salim said relationships suck. No. The right ones are awesome. Am I picky? Yes, I'm extremely picky, but once I find someone who falls within or that I perceive to fall within my picky parameters, then I'm like crazy overboard. Too quick is my thing, you know? Like it takes me forever to even find someone who falls into like, who checks all my boxes, but initially, but like if they do, I'm gonna be like, ah, about it. Super excited. That's too long of a conversation. Salim, who's my ideal partner. Yeah, that's too long. I date penguins. No, I don't. What the heck? Salim, yeah. Terrible ones are horrible. They can mess with like so many aspects of your life. For sure. I don't know. Have you ever thought about this? That breakups are like similar to death, but maybe worse? I know that sounds so stupid. But like, or they can be. They're not always. Because think about it. What is so sad about a death? Well, the saddest part is that they aren't getting to experience life anymore. So from that can never be matched again, okay? So that makes death more sad. But in a breakup situation, what's also sad about death is that you're never going to get to spend time with them anymore. Like they're exiting your life. And in most breakups, that's the same thing. Like, but in the breakup case, they're choosing to exit your life forever. Like, let's say you're getting broken up with, okay? I don't know. That's pretty intense. Breakups can be awesome. Not if you're doing the relationship good. I mean, if you have a sucky relationship, yeah, breakups can be good. Do y'all want to keep watching this debate?
It's a true human being or not are entirely arbitrary. It's entirely down to personal taste, and I don't think that any human agency, whether it's government or religious or social.
I will say, pro-choice to be pro-life? Huh? Jared said, well, what I mean is when people feel they have to be in a relationship, they really can fall into some bad ones. The ones that come without really trying seem to be the most significant. Totally! Yes! 100%. But it's so annoying when you want, like, a relationship. How do you convince yourself to not look for a relationship? Because in the not looking, if that's your strategy to get in a relationship, then you're kind of looking. I don't know, but it's so true. Like, so often unhealthy relationships are caused because, like, you were desperate to be in one. But if you're just kind of living your life and you get in one by happenstance, then, like, it'll likely be a lot better. I'm going through that right now. It's absolutely horrible. Wait, well, you're going through what? Oh no. Oh my goodness, guys. Wait. My last partner was mentally abusive and kind of scammed me out of thousands of dollars for 2 years. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. What the heck? Can we talk about this dude's glasses not matching his face? Okay, now we're watching.
Should have the right to determine whether something should live or die or not based on a definition that someone's written down somewhere, which is obviously subject to revision. Yeah, there we go.
Well, okay, I disagree with every single statement you made. So when we say life begins at conception, sure, there is a life, some kind of life there, some kind of living thing, but we don't protect all living.
Andre, I'm so sorry. What the heck? Whatever you're going through, I send you the best of energy and hope that you're able to be strong through it. I don't know the specifics, so I can't feel anything more than that about the details, but I hope somehow you come out the other end.
Things we're concerned with protecting human life, right? So when does that thing become something worth like protecting is the question.
Oh my goodness, Z King sent in a super chat. Thank you so much. Amazing, amazing, amazing. He said, I'm a weirdo. I've never really thought about being in a relationship once my whole life. Every blue moon I think of it, but it's not in my life goals. I always see myself solo and feel comfortable. That's amazing. I can't relate to that. I apologize. Since I was like conscious, I've been thinking about relationships. But that's really, really interesting. Wow.
When we talk, we don't even know if people are conscious. I don't know how to engage with that. I think I've demonstrated adequately that like consciousness is something that all of us consider, and it is the thing that we consider for when people are dead or not. You can keep a body alive for a long time with a bunch of different fancy machines, but if they're never going to wake up, we don't waste the money to do that because there's no purpose in doing that. We don't say that things are worth preserving just because they're organisms. There's a million different types of organisms we wouldn't preserve. When you talk about the fact that it's going to become a baby or human being, it seems like you're acknowledging that there is a distinction between what it is and what it's going to become, and it is not the thing that it's going to become. That's why it's going to become that thing, and you do not have all of the inherent properties of the thing you're going to become when you haven't become it yet. Therefore, there is a distinction there. When we say that it's entirely arbitrary, sure.
Salim said, make sure you keep the same level of viewer interaction when your channel grows bigger. I will absolutely, because I love interacting with y'all.
But that's not a way to get rid of any arguments, because obviously we need to decide at some point we're not going to kill 5-year-olds and say, well, it's all arbitrary. And personal taste also doesn't apply here, because we're talking about social values for the entirety of society. We can't say it's in my personal taste to kill 5-year-olds. And to say that the government doesn't have the right to determine if something should live or die, that is probably one of the most important functions of the government, is to protect life. Governments will make rules on whether or not how we can kill each other, or who's entitled to live or die based on like certain things. Like you're not allowed to just like dump your child on the street and watch them die, or you have some obligation to take care of children in your house, or you can't just kill your grandma because she's really fucking annoying. So yeah,
I agree with everything that Stephen just said, strangely enough, except for the fact that I would not say that consciousness is the thing that we would use.
What is your positive argument? What would you say then? I guess what is, so you can give me a position.
So what I would say is it is a human life. That we know for sure.
Wait, but I'm asking, at what point do you endow it with like moral consideration? When does that happen?
Immediately, like
yes,
you would have to say conception, and my definition of that would be like implantation, because.
Thank you so much, Penn. That means a lot.
you don't know if a fertilized egg is going to be, there's no practical way
why
to
would you
know
say
that.
implantation and not conception?
Well, because up until it implants, it's not necessarily a human life. You can't say that.
So are you in favor of
when
like
cell division is happening or things like that?
I mean,
because you just won't know. Like,
wait, hold on. Let's say that we take an egg from a person and we start growing it in an incubator. Is this never going to become a human because it didn't implant in a uterus? Or
Oh, well, that would be an exception then. So if we did do that, then yes, it would be a human life.
Okay, then are you in favor of also Plan B since that prevents implantation?
I'm not really in favor of Plan B, but as a legal, so
wait, you have to say why.
Right. I'm going to say why.
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
going to totally explain why. So there's a difference to me between the ethical argument and the legal argument.
Well, I'm only asking ethically. I don't care legally.
Ethically, I'm against it. Legally, I would probably permit it
eject the legal shit. I super don't care because we're not having a legal argument right now. So how can you be against it if you think that implantation is the moment a life begins?
Because I'm against any measure that prevents human life. So if you don't know, right? When you take a Plan B, you don't know if that egg is fertilized or not. You don't know if
we need to. You have to amend that statement because I'm guessing you don't think that like condoms are a form of abortion or something, right? Even though they prevent human life, right?
No, I think there's a difference between abortifacient types of birth control and non-abortifacient types.
Well, how is it an abortifacient if you don't think it's a human life until implantation begins?
Well,
if you prevent the implantation,
then
then what's...
Let me clarify. It's not that I don't think it's human life. I was mainly making a pragmatic, like, legal argument.
Wait, hold on. I'm not looking for pragmatic legal arguments. This is an ethical debate. So eject all the legal arguments. Yeah.
Yes, I think that any attempt to prevent implantation would also be an attempt to prevent human life.
Salim asked, is living in Texas as hard and intimidating for an LGBTQ progressive person or minorities? Are you saying like which one is harder? I could not, it depends on the person. I couldn't possibly quantify that. Yeah.
Life from continuing its natural
Sure, but if we're saying that preventing implantation is in and of itself immoral, then implantation can't be the point at which you say it's endowed with some moral consideration. It must be the moment before then. It must be conception then, not implantation. Implantation is just another step on the journey to becoming a fully fledged human being.
Yeah, this is kind of
that's consistent. Yeah.
Right. This is the conundrum of what to do, is because people want to have sex ever since women's liberation.
Well, hold on, don't care. That's not relevant to the conversation. A lot of people also want to kill their fucking kids. I have an 11-year-old. I'll be honest about that, but that doesn't make it a moral right, or doesn't mean we can do that.
Say that. Okay? That's horrible.
Okay, if you've had a 2-year-old kid, all right. Okay, but
that's somebody. I love them, and I don't want to kill them.
Somebody that wants to do something does it. We're focused on the ethics.
Right.
So I'm going to delete. We're not talking implantation then. We're talking conception, the moment of conception. Yeah.
Purely ethically, and this is the stance of my church, is that no, you don't try to prevent humans from being born for any reason.
Sure. So
out of personal. Convenience or
sure. So we're going to say the moment of conception.
That doesn't make any sense because you don't prevent humans from being born. Well, then why ever wear a condom? Why ever not be having sex? Just have sex 24/7 if that's your stance. You can never prevent the possible creation of a human life. Well, then just all you should be doing is having sex.
Is going to be the moment that we endow it with all of the moral consideration that we would for any normal human being, right? At the moment of conception.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay. If we have that figured out, why?
Why? Because as you said yourself, it's a human life. I don't base it off of conscious experience because I think that's, you get into some really...
Penn, I know. It sounded like she was saying... Ever since the liberation, women's liberation movement, people just wanted to have sex. It's like, hate to break it to you, people just wanted to have sex since the beginning of time. It's a bad idea to visit the Red South in general. Parts of Texas are liberal cities, but there's a libertarian streak there too, not just Bible Belt. No, I don't think it's a bad idea to visit the South in general. No, I don't think that. There's really nice parts and you'll notice when you go to the South, a lot of people are just really, really nice. Like when I travel up north, the vibe is much more intense and not as sweet. Everyone will, be real sweet to you for the most part. Of course, there's some views here that are bad, but like the general interaction you'll have is really good.
Subjective territory.
Okay, do you think that like a corpse should have the same protections as a fetus?
Do you think a corpse is alive?
I don't, but your definition is that it's a human life. I don't know. What is a human life to you? What does that mean?
Well, okay, a human life would be if you can see cellular activity and so bacteria is alive, right? I'm not trying to equate human life to bacteria, but I'm saying we know that an embryo at any stage is human life. It's alive. If it wasn't alive, you wouldn't have to kill it.
Lots of things are alive. Like sperm are alive, but that doesn't mean that you can't, kill sperm.
Which is that's my whole problem with abortion. People want to say like, oh, well, you're not technically killing it because blah, 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 blah. But you wouldn't have to kill it.
Okay, hold on. So that
alive.
argument is total nonsense. No one is saying that you're not killing anything. What's being said is you're not killing like a human life that has moral consideration. Obviously, there's something to be killed.
But a lot of people will say
there's not a lot of people in the call right now. It's just me, though. Okay.
Right. Okay.
So saying that like,
if
it's alive, you wouldn't have to kill.
We don't kill human life. No.
Sure. Obviously, by definition, we don't kill human life, or most sane people should say that, right? So
yes.
Okay. So then backing up, there's a lot, but there's so many different. It's just okay. Well. You say that it's a human life because you can see cellular activity. So I'll skip ahead to all the boring stuff and we'll qualify this more because I'm assuming you can see decomposition in dead bodies. That's technically cellular activity, but we'll clarify that you probably don't mean that type of cellular activity.
Doug, have you ever spent time? I obviously haven't spent tons of time like in what people consider the deep south. I've more been in Texas, but I think you'd be surprised because I'm not basing this on my experience. I'm basing this on all the people I know who live here, who are my friends, who are of all different identity groups.
Activity. We'll say maybe a nicer phrase might be some sort of like metabolic activity or some homeostasis activity where the body is maintaining
cell division, something like that.
Not necessarily, but sure, we'll say something like that. Okay, even if that was the case though, okay, if I could demonstrate to you, if I could show you a body where I put a body on a table and I can hook it up to blood bypass machines, dialysis machines, everything, I can leave it functioning and all that, but I scooped the brain out and the person will never wake up again, would you say that that is a human life?
No, because, well, here's the distinction. I think I can help you with this. We're talking about intervention, right? We're talking about human intervention.
Wait, no. I'm trying to figure out what it is you're protecting. I don't know what that.
Life.
That's what.
Human
It's
life,
not life.
right?
It's not human life. It's something more than that because a decomposing body is human life. I'm trying to figure out.
It's not though. How is a decomposing body human life? That's bacteria living off the dead tissue.
The dead tissue is literally not, it doesn't all die instantly. It's literally part of the development is you, from the moment of conception to the absolute decomposition of every last cell in your body is all part of your biological journey from start to finish. So
no. I don't think that's, so number one, you're relying on like some sort of scientific definition, right?
No, well, I'm trying to figure out what your definition. I'm not trying to rely on anything. I'm trying to. There's some bounded area in here.
But surely, if a human being is dead, if the bacteria are feeding off the dead tissue, the tissue is breaking down.
That's happening in your living body right now. Bacteria feeds off of tissue.
That's true. You're saying if we could take all kinds of crazy measures to animate some kind of dead corpse,
hold on, wait. I have to. Wait. I can't let you poison the argument with words like that. Crazy arguments. There are bodies that can be kept alive almost indefinitely that are in like long-term comas in hospitals. That's not crazy. That's not far out. Not only is it not crazy or far out, there have been very real medical debates about this in the United States. I'm sure you remember Terry Schiavo, right? Yeah, these are huge issues that people talk about. So these are not crazy things. These are very real, very grounded, very pragmatic issues we deal with. Okay.
Granted.
I imagine that technically if someone were brain dead, but you could hook their bodies up to various machines to keep their organ systems running, that you would qualify as human life. However, if the patient, let's use that word, if the patient were brain dead without the possibility of recovery, and therefore without the of consciousness and all the rest of it, of going into the world and impacting human society in hopefully positive ways, you could argue that switching off the machine and then harvesting the organs for donation wouldn't make much of a difference. But at that point, because it's on the downward trajectory at that point, if the person has reached physical maturity, they've suffered a head injury, they're not going to experience consciousness again, etc., etc. They're on the downward slope.
We don't no. I think that whether or not something is alive, we view fairly binarily in a binary manner. We don't say that since you're on the downward slope, now we're going to kill you. Like grandma's on the downward slope, we're not killing her, right? So I'm trying to find where the bounds are for what you consider to be a life worth protecting, because that's where I'm going to find where your definitions are. Because everything that's said so far has been hazy.
I understand what you're saying.
That's all I'm looking for, yeah.
But I think that there's a distinction between intervening to prevent a life from progressing as it normally would, and intervening to end a life faster than it might normally end. I think there's a difference there. I don't think you can say that they're exactly the same.
Sure, those are different things, but it's not relevant to what like intervening to prevent what or ending what.
Why do we keep talking about corpses and how long we're going to preserve life versus the conversation about abortion is about people stop. The whole reason you have an abortion is to prevent that human being from further developing into.
Yeah, but it's the same reason why you would
right?
wear a condom or practice abstinence, is to prevent the formation of a human being. But again,
yes, but once it's already formed.
Yeah, abortion isn't contraception, because contraception takes place before conception.
That's great. And a fetus, the potential to become conscious is not a conscious being either, right? I agree with you.
Also, a cluster of cells are not human beings, actually.
Sure.
Well, you're a cluster of cells.
But we're all clusters.
I'm a cluster
sure.
of
We're all
cells.
clusters. Sure, but I'm saying that there needs to be something a little bit more, it seems, because when I'm pushing you on the what is a dead person, or when are they dead, or if I scoop a person's brain out, even if I can show you all of the other organ systems are functioning fine, it seems like that brain doing something is pretty important for us to determine whether or not that thing is still alive.
See, I don't think that it's in the brain, and I think you're making kind of an unequivalent analogy by trying to say.
Sure. When you say it's not in the brain, could you give me an example of a thing without a brain that this is the life that I have to protect, right?
Destiny, if I may interject, sorry, this is one of the dangers with the consciousness argument, or the quality of mental life.
Okay, to be clear, I don't think I've had any dangerous parts of my argument. I feel pretty consistent with mine. I'm still pushing. I'm not even at mine. I'm trying to get one from you guys. But go ahead.
Well, no. The problem is that what do you mean by consciousness as well is the other problem.
Sure. When I say consciousness, hold on. You don't have to ask and pretend I don't have an answer. I can answer every question you have for me. So when I say consciousness, it seems like we have an awareness, and that awareness is an emergent property from the communication of several underlying structures in the brain. And those structures that are necessary to communicate with each other for the emergent property of our consciousness to appear seem to be in place and communicating with each other at around 20 to 24 weeks in gestation.
CA, thank you so much for the super chat. Said, these people aren't with us. I'm confused. They get on my nerves. Can they read that I think they suck? Which people? The people in the debate? Or the people in the chat?
Station.
Okay, so what if someone is experiences a traumatic head injury, and their consciousness is impaired? Would that make them a lesser life?
No, I don't think so. Having an impaired consciousness or a higher consciousness doesn't make you lesser. But you're still having a conscious experience worth protecting, even if it might be somewhat impaired.
Right, but do you not think that if a baby is going to develop a consciousness, and that's coming, that the potential of consciousness is just as valuable as consciousness itself?
No, there's no other ontological category you can give me where the potential of a thing is the same thing as the thing. That just never ever exists. I'm curious, or can you give me an example of if I put together a thing here and a thing here, and then somebody comes by and they destroy it, would you ever say, I had the parts to build the building, you destroyed my building? Or would you say, no, you destroyed the parts of the building? The potential of a thing to become a thing is its own thing. It's not the same thing as the thing it's going to become. That's not true.
Well, there are two problems. The gestation of a human being is a unique scenario anyway, but also
it's not unique,
talking about.
But go ahead.
Well, no, but if you're talking about that you've got the bits of the building and you haven't built it yet, then you're talking about tissue, if you like. Whereas if you're assembling the building and you've put the foundations in and you've got the major structures in, for example, and then I come and knock it over with a wrecking ball, you could argue that I've destroyed your building, but the building was being assembled.
No, you would say you've destroyed the foundations of a building. You wouldn't say you've destroyed an entire building, right? If not,
I got you, Tom. I think that's a fair view to have.
9/11 happened with a foundation dug out and there were, no towers there. People wouldn't say, oh my God, they blew up 2 buildings. They'd say like they crashed into the foundation of a newly constructed building, right? That was in the process of being built. The thing that you're going to become is not the thing itself. These are 2 separate things.
Mm.
I think, so backing up again, I'm just trying to figure out, it seems to me, I'm curious if either of you answer this, if I can take out, okay, so here's a thought challenge that I would give to both of you. I would argue that I can remove every single organ, at least one organ, from any body, from any person. I can take any organ out and replace it with some kind of machine. I can give you a fake heart. I can do dialysis for your kidneys. I can process things for your liver. I can do all these things. But if I remove the brain, something has fundamentally changed with that person. If I take out the brain and I keep everything else working, it seems like something has changed there. Do you agree or disagree with that? Or do you think you can remove brains from people and still have like a functioning, like working human? You can just substitute that out with some other thing.
Well, no, I mean, it's, you can't communicate with the body once the brain has been removed. That's certainly true.
Well, so then let's say theoretically, if you believe that to be the case, now I'm not going to say this is happening, but let's say theoretically that a fetus had no brain until 6 months. Would you then agree that the fetus with no brain until 6 months doesn't even have a thing worth protecting yet? Or...
No.
Part of the reason I want to watch this is because this is such an interesting line of logic to go down that people don't do enough about consciousness. That's really fascinating, and I'm loving the way he's laying it out.
But what it has is that it's going to, because you know that a brain is coming, and you know that if you intervene, that human life will be sabotaged before it's truly developed. It's not the same thing as removing a brain from it's a different scenario, sure, isn't it?
Okay, so if I push you on this category, so when you say something is coming, okay, so yeah. Now you're not protecting a particular thing. It seems like you're making the concession that the thing in and of itself is not really worth protecting, but it's going to become something that will be worth protecting.
I would say no.
You're saying no what?
Here's the reason that we're not talking about something composed of parts that's going to become a thing. It's human life, and we do have a scientific definition for that. When you have human life, you have things like cell metabolism, you have reproduction of cells. That's not something you have in dead bodies.
That's just not true, okay? Your hair and your nails will grow for, I think, maybe weeks. At the very least, it's days after death. But
actually, I think I'll just
that's a myth. That's a myth.
Yeah, that's a myth.
The tissue shrinks. It's the illusion.
It's not that the tissue is growing. You don't have cellular reproduction and division going after the body's dead.
Okay,
that's not
sure. Maybe you don't. Even if that was the case, if I can give you a healthy body without a brain, where the cells are still metabolizing and everything, it sounds like you guys earlier said that you wouldn't agree that that's like a living body.
What's the Mensa test? What is it?
Worth protecting.
Well, again, you're talking about, this is not analogous, right? To say, okay, there's a human life, it is taking its natural process. It is already a human life. And now we're going to talk about there's a body, and we're going to do all kinds of scientific Frankenstein stuff to to keep it alive without brains or alive without organs. These are not analogous.
Okay, hold on.
We're talking about intervention.
Nothing here is analogous. We're not talking about intervention. We can't even have that conversation yet, because I still don't know what you value in a human life. The reason why I'm asking these hypotheticals is I'm trying to figure out, because however eager you are to attack my definition of conscious, you've given me nothing yet. Your position.
I can give you something right now.
Okay, but just be careful, because you keep saying things like human life, cell division, blah, blah, but anytime I've tested any of the examples you've given with a hypothetical,
you're
saying
asking scientific questions with your hypothetical.
No, wait. I'm not. None of these questions are science.
Gotcha, Doug. It's an IQ test. Goodbye, CA. Yeah, this is fascinating.
Human life is intrinsically valuable in and of itself. It doesn't have to already meet certain criteria that you're arbitrarily putting in there. It is human life, and the purpose of abortion is to come in and prevent human life. It's to come in and kill the
Okay,
human
but
life.
preventing human life isn't all wrong. This is what I'm trying to get a simple, narrow definition. Because you would say condoms aren't wrong, and that's okay.
Stephen. It's something that's already
Sperm are already
alive, and
sperm
you're
are
coming
but
in to
sperm
end
are
the life.
sperm are already alive. So there's something else that's happening here.
Tissue.
No.
Sperm is tissue.
Yeah.
The ovaries.
Tissue is alive. Your body, the tissue in your body is alive. What do you mean?
It's not a human being. You have to have both.
Yeah, but
sets of
neither is a
DNA from
fetus.
the
A
egg.
fetus is not a human being. That's
It is a human being.
Define human being. Now that was going. Stephen beat me to it. Define human being.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what is like that when we say human being. Like, when does the life become that thing, that human being that's worth protecting?
At conception.
Okay, and then
because it now has both sets of DNA from the sperm and the egg, and it is in the process of growing. It's already a human. It's already established. And if you didn't intercede to kill it, it would continue to develop. And it's already human.
Sure.
It's just going
I
through.
okay.
So you
hold
kill
on, wait,
a
okay.
tadpole, you're still
No,
killing it.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
But would you say when you kill a tadpole, you kill a frog?
Yes. I'm saying you're killing a life.
No, we're not
kill a
talking.
life.
Wait, no one here is arguing whether you're killing a life or a
It's
living
a human,
thing.
whether it's an
No, we're not-
embryonic stage, a fetal stage, or a fully
Okay,
developed stage.
so in my hold on, wait,
definition
and then
of
Tree, you can
human
go. So in my opinion, when arguments come to the point where you circle the drain this hard, and then there is like a hard pivot on every single question, I think that the conversation has run its course. So I'm good on where I'm at for establishing my points. I think I set up consciousness as a pretty valid thing. I think I argue that convincingly this is why you're dead at the end of your life. It's when your conscious ceases to exist. I've tried for like 30 minutes to figure out like what is your thing for life that you would protect, and I've gotten like 50 it's not that I don't like it, it's that every time I try to push on, well, what about this or what about that, I get these answers like, well, that's a wild hypothetical.
They're not
That's
analogous.
So no, I know they're not analogous.
It
doesn't have to be one.
Dismissed. It can be dismissed without logical penalty.
Okay.
Human life is human life, regardless of the stage
Right.
of development.
I
Is
gotta
that clear
run
enough?
downstairs real quick. No, nothing was clear in your definition. It was nothing
Human
was.
life is human
be right
life, regardless of the stage of development that it's in. It doesn't matter if you're an embryo or if you're 90 years old, you are a human life, and that is worth protecting. I think that's super clear.
Define human body.
Well, this is the problem because what I think the frustration.
I know, it's funny when you're debating about if it's a human life in the sense that it should be protected, and then the argument is, yeah, it's a human life because that's when it becomes a human life. Well, wait. We know it's a living thing, but is it like a human life in the same way that all the other ones we refer to that need individual rights? And you're just like stating your thesis, and it's like, yes, I know that's your thesis. Now tell me why.
Is that
Q&A
because
soon.
different. Say again.
Q&A coming in soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Let them answer my question, then
So once they start the Q&A, we'll bow out.
I'll drop everything to it. I just
Yeah.
want to ask that
See,
question.
the problem is, Tree, is that because one of the reasons I love coming onto debates like this, and James has invited me a few times, is because I always approach these debates assuming that I'm wrong. Because there must be, if I was right, everyone would agree with me. So I want to hear from different points of view. The trouble is that I think, particularly with abortion, it's one where everyone thinks that they're right, and I think I'm kind of like that way too. The problem is that you're asking, how do you define human life? That has troubled philosophers from.
I've got a definition right here for human body.
Okay,
the human body is the physical substance of the human organism, composed of living cells and extracellular materials organized into tissues, organs, and systems, which is exactly what I just said it was.
You know, I gotta fact check you because you're known to lie. You said that's the definition of a human body.
Yeah,
so
go ahead and Google it.
Define human
I don't lie. It's just that you don't understand logic. It's not.
The thing is that these definitions
I
have
knew
troubled
you lied.
people from
You
millennia.
lied by omission. Okay, the human body, the physical substance of a human organism composed of living cells and extracellular
That's what I
materials
just
and
said.
let me finish. Shut up. And organized into tissues, organs, and
she read that part.
Systems in the human body. So you left out the organs.
I
And
didn't.
so
I said
you,
all
no,
of
you
that.
know, you're
Back it up.
Tree,
Back it up and watch it again. I said
I did.
Tree,
She did
she
say
did
organs.
she did
Okay.
actually.
So
yeah,
here's the
she did.
deal. Here's the deal.
That hurts.
What organs does a fertilized cell have?
Well, it says composed of living cells and extracellular materials and organized into those things. So,
and
just
organized
because
tissues, and it says comma, organs,
And systems.
And systems.
Yeah, but this is-
Yes.
but
Even
this is-
embryos
this is the-
have systems. That's how they
I
sustain
just
their
asked
life.
the question.
Is it alive or is it not?
No. I just asked the question. Does a fertilized egg, based upon this definition, have an organ?
It has systems, tissues, and cellular materials.
Yeah, it definitely
According
has
to the
tissues, but it doesn't have organs. But
Thank
here's the other.
my God,
Here's the
thank
other.
you, Kendra. Notice how you answer the question and she just skates by it. She does that every time. I ask, does this fertilized egg have an organ? She got, it has tissue and system. And then you just asked the question, yes, it has organized
getting
tissues,
crazy.
but it doesn't have an organ. That's all I wanted to know. And thank you for answering my question.
Well, but here's the question that I would put to anybody who's prepared to answer it. If a fetus or an embryo is not a human being, what is it?
It's a human fetus.
I mean, well, okay, but it's still human. Yes, it's. Still
I mean, a
human
tadpole
life.
is not
It's
a
just the different
frog, right?
stages
A
of
sperm, like it's like one stage. Like a corpse is a human corpse. A body could be a human body. Fetus can be a human fetus. Like we.
Jared. Yeah, it's true.
We talk about like the biological body that exists, but it seems like the thing that we value, that we treasure, that we're trying to protect is the conscious experience. It seems to be the thing that we're aimed at.
I don't agree.
Okay, that's fine that you don't agree. I know you don't agree, but you guys never gave me a good
But you haven't given a good reason why that needs to be the thing. What if I believe that all human life is valuable, that there's a soul in the body at conception, in the embryo at conception, there is a soul, and that you don't have any better.
Then I would
pushback
ask you.
against that
I would
idea than
ask you.
I do
I
against
absolutely would. I would ask you, where is the soul?
It's not something you can it's not something you can physically locate.
Then
right?
if it's not something that I can measure, I have no. There's no way.
Consciousness
I
can't
can't.
be measured either.
It absolutely can be in some ways.
Can't be.
Yes.
In some ways. See, you had to qualify that because we don't. This is something that's hotly debated.
It's
in
no. Hold on.
philosophy of science.
This is
Yes,
you.
it
This is your whole argument is Loki's wager. That if I can't pinpoint 100% exactly what consciousness is,
Yes.
you're telling me that it is the same validity as your concept of a soul, which has no physical manifestation whatsoever.
Right. I'm saying if you're
hold on.
going to choose
I'm telling you that if you're going to
if
you are going
my
to
concept of a
employ
noose or a soul.
if you are going to employ debate terms and rational and logic and all that during this conversation, you have to understand the absurdity of saying that since I cannot give you a concrete 100% like analysis of where this particular thing is, that that very concept becomes equal to every other absurd thing that I can possibly think of. That is ridiculous.
I understand that you don't like it, but what
No,
I'm saying
hold
is that
on.
we're on equal
I'm not
ground.
saying that I don't like it. I'm telling you that we're not on-
I'm saying that consciousness versus the soul, we
Okay.
are on equal ground. You can't unequivocally prove in some sort of, you like to.
Okay,
you wanna
if
prove
I
it in
make a
sense,
statement,
right?
if I
But
make
you
a statement,
can't,
if I
and
make a
neither
statement that there is a pink demon floating behind you that spins around every time you turn around to look at it, and then you tell me I think that there is like oxygen floating behind you. Neither of us can prove that. Are we on
Right.
equal ground when we make those statements?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
By
I rest my
definition,
case. That's it.
we're on
Okay, I
equal
rest my
ground.
case. We're absolutely not. But if you think we are, then I understand more of your argument.
This may be a time for Q&A.
All right, and then they do Q&A. That is an epic way to end. Do you think it's the same thing for me to claim there's a pink demon floating behind you and you to claim there's oxygen behind me? Because we both can't prove it right then in that moment. And she says yes. It's the same thing. Wow. Whew, that was epic. That was quite long. That was really, really awesome. All right. Oh gosh, wait, before I go, let me see. It's about applying your upbringing to other people you aren't familiar with. This is how we learn about each other. He is in Africa asking about culture in the US. Who's applying? Who? I mean, I know Salim's asking, but yeah, so if he's asking about culture here, we'll tell him about our experiences. Anyways, much love to you all. That was a blast. We almost hit 4 hours. Good stuff. I'll be back for our last show of the week tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern with a nice batch of news, and then we'll chill out for the weekend. But until then,